All right, so the first motion,
I'm writing it down, Dave.
It's worth the chance to make it nice.
It would be nice if you weren't.
Yeah, man.
would be lot 5, right?
Oh, yeah, we're doing 5.
That's a good time.
And that would be pushing the buildings back deeper into the lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
I was able to sit out on my patio and read the paper when the things were quiet and that. Now I can't even
this is the first one.
talk back over.
Okay, so the motion is to grant a variance from section 2.4 for two duplex buildings at 241 Woodland Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of granting said variance? All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Second one is for, just change that to 4.3G.
Motion to grant a variance from section 4.3G to push the buildings back deeper into the lot at 241 Woodland Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
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 Okay. And then we need to do 239 as well. Same language, just change that to 239.
Okay. Motion to grant a variance from section 2.4 for two duplex buildings at 239 Woodland Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you so
you,
much
folks.
for your
Thank-
time.
Thank you for letting me use this. Whoever's this is, I
Great.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Ali, we miss you at the dog pound. Come on. Coming out of retirement?
No.
No?
Now, we have another public hearing.
Well, maybe we'll have the marijuana on Prospect Street now. We're zoned for it, right?
I'll throw these out. Okay, the next, we all set? All right, so the next public
You
hearing,
might want to say what happened here. They are still confused. The motions.
oh, yeah, so, again, just to summarize.
Hold on, everybody, please.
Please,
Listen
we're
up.
still in the hearing here. Just to summarize, we have voted down all 3 variances here.
Is it still 2 acres?
I'm sorry?
The lot zone? Is it 2 acres?
No, it's closer to 1.
Oh, I thought it was changed.
It's closer to 1. All right, and so now we're moving on to a different public hearing this evening. Before this hearing gets underway, I wanted to acknowledge publicly that I am an abutter to this next issue, and so I need to recuse myself. So in my place, I would ask our vice chair to take over as the chair for this next petition. What's that?
Oh, could everyone please sign in? There are sign-in sheets there at the beginning of the door. Thank you.
Please, if you haven't signed in, please do so. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
That's okay, that's okay. Andrew, we have to put it. Does he have his? No. I can do mine.
All right, perfect.
Where do you about the copies?
That's what put it in.
No, that was for this.
Good evening. I call this portion of the meeting to order. For the record, the chairman, Mr. Olson, is a butter to the 57 Goodale Street. As you all know, he is recusing himself for this hearing. I'll be the chairing this public hearing. And at this time, I do like to invite Mr. Andrew Freeland, associate member of the zoning board. We have quorum. So, Mr. Vickers, Mr. Femia, myself, Mr. Oceani, and Mr. Freeland.
Could you please sign in? I did sign. Oh, okay, thanks.
So, I will ask clerk to read the public hearing.
The zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing at West Boylston Town Offices, 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston, Mass. Board of Selectmen Meeting Room, number 210, on Thursday, December 6, 2018, at 8 p.m. To act on the petition of Melissa L. Sylvia, 55 Goodale Street, West Boylston, Mass. For an administrative appeal regarding the issue of a building permit number B18-205 to Justin Gabriel for construction of a 48-foot by 90-foot garage at 57 Goodale Street, West Boylston, Mass. Record title of 57 Goodale Street stands in the name of Justin Gabriel. 57 Goodale Street, West Boylston, Mass. Copies of the petition are on file in the office of the town clerk, 140 Worcester Street, and available upon a request. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing.
Thank you. So this hearing is to act on the petition, Ms. Sylvia of 55 Goodale Street, for an appeal on the building inspector's decision on a building permit, B18-205 to Mr. Justin Gabriel, 57 Goodale Street. So for the construction of 48 by 90 detached garage at 57 Goodale Street, West Boylston. This requires a supermajority vote, and I would, for this hearing, I will, first the petitioner will, or the petitioner's representative will be presenting their argument. Then the board will ask during or after, they can ask questions. And then the defendant will be presenting their case. Then we may need to bring in the building inspector and also some of the board's recommendations or suggestions will be read. So after the question and answers, it will be open to the public comments. So at this time, I request the petitioner to present.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Michael Sawarda. I'm an attorney from Worcester, Massachusetts, and I am representing Melissa Silva. I know I think it was read Sylvia. Melissa Silva, who lives at 55 Goodale, and direct abutter to the property at 57 Goodale, where Mr. Gabriel has his permit and frankly has commenced the building of his garage. The permit that was issued was for, as the board notes in its notice, a 48 by 90 foot garage, which is about 4,320 square feet. The garage is over 30 feet high, and it was issued by the building inspector, Mr. Tigner, on the basis that it was an accessory use to the main residential use of the property. It's our position that it is not an accessory use for a variety of reasons, a non-allowable accessory use. The first is that the property, the building on the single residence on the property is less than 2,000 square feet, which means that the garage is well more than twice the size and almost 3 times the size of the actual main structure on the property. I think the basic definition in the law is that a subordinate, an accessory use is subordinate to the main use. I'm not sure that a building that's 3 times as large as the residential, what is supposed to be the prime use, qualifies as a subordinate use. Secondly, we did write to Mr. Tigner prior to the issuance of the actual building permit. There was an initial building permit issued, which a stop work order was put on the permit for a variety of reasons, some of which was it appeared that some of the construction was too close to the property line. That was issued by a prior interim building inspector, that stop work order.
What was it? Do you have the date on that?
On the prior stop
Yeah.
work order? Yes, I do. Yep. You know what, I will get it if I
Sure.
could. I do have it in my briefcase,
Yep.
and I will get that for you. Actually, here it is.
It was on August 31st. August 31st.
Yes, that is the one. Yep. So between then and the issuance of the new building permit, we did communicate with Mr. Tigner about our concern about the project, about its nature of its accessory use, the size of the building, etc. He wrote a response back which indicated that there had been a reduction in the size of the building slightly. Originally, the permit was for a 60 by 90 foot building, even larger than what's being built. And he indicated that since it was now less than 4 times the size of the principal use, that he believed it qualifies it as an accessory use. I don't know where the 4 times standard comes from. I've checked it in the law, I've checked under the zoning bylaw. That seems to me an arbitrary figure, as that if you're less than 4 times as large as the primary use, that somehow that qualifies as subordinate. In my world, a subordinate use would be smaller than, not looking at 4 and 5 time multiples of that. So I think that in that case, the building inspector's actions were in fact very arbitrary. And having sat on a planning board myself, that's one thing you cannot do as a public official, is act in an arbitrary manner. It has to be based on fact and reason. Secondly, the bylaw itself, assuming that Mr. Tigner's interpretation of 4 times was even close to correct, the bylaw provides for an accessory use in the West Boylston bylaw with 2 standards. One, it has to be customarily incidental to the main use of the property, and secondly, not detrimental to the residential use of the neighborhood, in this case. I would argue very strongly that a garage, a 4,320-foot garage, is not in any way, shape, or form a customary incidental use in a single-family residential neighborhood. To give the board some framework, I did go online and check for prefab garages if you wanted to get one. And a 4-car garage, in what I looked at, was about 1,440 square feet. We're 3 times that, the equivalent of really a 12-car garage, which I don't see is the neighborhoods I drive around. Can't say that I've ever seen a 12-car garage, so I can't say that that's customary. Secondly, the question is whether it's detrimental to the residential neighborhood. And for purposes of the board, I know that there are a number of neighbors here tonight who are very concerned about the project. I've actually got a picture of where the project was a few days ago. Mr. Gabriel, at his own risk, has continued to build and now has the project pretty much completely framed, which I find surprising. But as far as detrimental to the neighborhood, I do want to present letters we have from 2 brokers to indicate the financial damage that will be done to residents and the diminution in value of their property.
Thank you.
There's the second one. This is just for Ms. Silver's property. I think you would find it brought in progress to analyze
Do you
other
have
neighbors.
extras?
Oh, I'm sorry, sure do. Yep. Also, at this time, I'll give you a picture of where this was. This was last weekend, sometime last week, am I right? That's when it started going. If you get an idea of the size of the garage, if you look at the two men standing in front of the project, just how high it is. This is the view from my client's front door.
That was the last thing.
Is that the only image?
Oh. Sorry. Not intentional. Then it's a final point. Even if the board were to determine that Mr. Gabriel's project complied with these two prongs, that the garage was in fact customary, and it's not detrimental to the neighborhood, there is another issue as far as it being an allowable use, which was Frank pointed out, I think, in the planning board letter to the board, which the planning board issued on November 19, which talks about the lot itself that this is on being undersized. The zone is a 40,000 square foot zone, and the lot itself, per the assessor's records, only has 0.85 acres, which is a little over 37,000 square feet. So the lot itself is undersized by, again, your bylaws. An accessory use has to comply with the dimensional requirements of the bylaw. And by definition, a building sitting on a non-conforming lot is a non-conforming structure. Which means if this structure were to be built, I think at the very least, Mr. Gabriel should have come before this board for a special permit in order to expand on the current non-conforming residential use of the property. So in summary, this garage is simply huge, and I think Melissa has indicated in her first discussions with me that she would not have opposed what she believed would be like typical residential garage. But this garage it's not on the rear of the property, it's right at the front. As you can see, that the pavement there is in fact the shared driveway that they have coming into the property. It's in the front yard, that's not customary, it's certainly detrimental to anybody's view of the property. I don't think anybody would want to see that type of a building in the front yard across this street. If it's smaller, if it was, a 4-car garage of 1,400 square feet, I don't think anybody would be here by now. I don't think my client would have spent money to retain me. And I think we would have had not as much of a dispute as we do. But unfortunately, we do, and we hope that this board acts in accordance with its bylaw to uphold our appeal of the permit, have a cease and desist stop work order issued for the project, and have Mr. Gabriel, if anything, build a garage that's much more in keeping with the size of a normal residential garage. And with that, I'll open it to questions. Mr. Chairman, whether you want questions or how you want to handle it.
Thank you. At this time, maybe we can get one comment from the building inspector.
Yeah.
Do you like to comment on the 4.5 times bigger?
That was just a correction of the math, basically, when they said that the garage was 4 times larger. I went through the square footage of the house and the square footage of the garage and calculated it to like 3 times. That was just a statement that the math was wrong when I wrote that statement on there, so.
So there is nothing in the bylaw, nothing says about
Nothing
accessories
that I
should be
could
4
find
times.
in the bylaw that has anything to do with that, yeah. That was more of a statement that the math was off.
That answers, right?
Well, it's an explanation, but it's, again, the size of it is still 4,000 square feet.
Yes.
He's saying that he didn't use that as a standard
Yes.
in his decision-making. That's for the board to determine based upon the letters and which are part of my petition.
Any questions? Yeah.
Can I ask the attorney?
Yep.
Can you come forward? I have
Sure.
something that I want. I think this is correct, okay? Where is Mrs.
Silva's house is
Silva?
right here.
Silva?
Yep, it's right here.
Okay. So where's the right-of-way?
Right away. The driveway to come in?
Yeah.
You're saying it's right in here. You can
Okay.
see it. You can
So
see it.
how
You can see it
far-
penciled in this here.
So how far is her house from this? Because you're saying that it's, you know, right in, I mean, I'm confused.
Well,
This is your house,
Yep.
correct, roughly?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how far are you from this building? A proposed building, excuse me.
So an inch was 40 feet. So you're probably maybe 200 feet based on this? Actually, this is an arc of 120 feet, so it's about 120 feet,
Okay,
about a football field.
all right, okay. I just have a question for, if somebody in the audience, is anybody here, Fanny L. Demoralis? Could you just stand, yes, could you just stand, give your name and address, because I have a question for you.
I'm at 43 Goodell Street in West Boylston.
Okay.
Right.
The question that I have for you is that I'm looking at this map. If you'd like to come up and look at it, you know, that'd be great. And Mr., I forgot your name.
Sawarda.
Mr. Stewart, if you want to come up. Sure. Okay. My question is this, is that, you know, I understand where Mrs. Sylvia, but she basically abuts the back, I mean, her house.
Right there.
Right.
I can see the whole thing is.
Would you like an aerial?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually,
Right
we
here,
have
my
an
house
aerial
is
which shows
here.
the houses.
The whole thing is just right there. in front of
Okay.
the house.
All right.
There's like, he took like, it's his property, I know, but
Right.
he took like maybe like 15 trees out of there. That's like, the only thing you see is a giant garage.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure.
For Mr. Chairman? This is, that's an aerial. Gives you an idea of the location. There's the house. Here's what he cleared. And here's the DeMaria house is over here. I think I have one other copy.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
That's before the trees.
Okay, 55 is your house, okay? Where is Mr. Gabriel's house in accordance to this?
Mr. Gabriel's house is here, this 57.
Okay,
That's
and
his
where's the garage going?
I'll leave that to Attorney O'Neill and Mr.
Okay.
Gabriel.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, no,
I don't want to step anybody's toes.
I believe down in this area.
Okay.
I've been there.
Oh, you want to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And when was the building permit canceled?
31st.
Was it canceled before this photograph was taken?
The initial building permit was canceled in late October,
Yeah,
and the new one was issued October, I believe, on the 30th.
stopped in
The stop work was in August, and there was still a building permit out on it. That was, the initial one was canceled in late October, and the new one issued.
so it's got siding on it now.
It's actually much further along than that. It's actually fully framed.
Yeah.
Some of, I do not have
And
updated pictures,
without a
but some of the
building
butters
permit,
do.
he didn't have a
No, it
building-
had-
No, he did. He got a second one. The initial permit was for a larger building. It was for 90 by 60. Mr. Gabriel cut that back by 12 feet, so it was 90 by 48, and a new permit was issued by the current building inspector, interim building inspector.
Was the old permit withdrawn?
Yeah, yes, it was, right? It was canceled.
Okay,
Any other questions?
all right. One of the things that the planning board they noted, section 5.1, okay? It's about accessory use, all right? I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but one of the things is, there's two things. It says, the term accessory use in this section shall not include, one, garage space for more than 3 automobiles except for owner's use. That's the very first one, okay? To me personally, that is a really broad statement. I mean, that can be interpreted many, many ways. The way I see it, it says garage space for more than 3 automobiles except for owner's use. If it's for the owner's use, then it could possibly be more than 3-car garage. Unless the owner is renting out the space. I mean, that's, because it's not, this particular statement is not very clear. It's really open to interpretation.
Mr. Feldman, in fact, I'll work with you on that, and let's assume that allows the owner to have more than 3 cars. I think that's pretty clear. You can have more than a 3-car garage. But it doesn't accept that standard out from the other prongs of the test, which is what it says is an accessory use, an owner can have more than 3-car garage. But it doesn't say that it can be detrimental to the neighborhood, that it can be non-customary to the neighborhood, and that it can be a non-conforming structure, because it's on a non-conforming lot. So although he can have more, he has to meet those other 3 tests.
What's going in this building? I mean, a 30-foot high garage?
So we will ask the,
If
they
I
are
could-
going to present,
Although, while
so
I've
let's
talked
wait for that.
I've talked with Attorney O'Neill prior, I'll actually let
let them
Mr.
explain.
Gabriel speak about that.
The only other question I have, and maybe it's not, relevant.
No, your questions have all been relevant.
I'm just curious, we have 2 statements from, 2 letters from, and I'm just curious why one of them isn't closer to this town. I mean, every town is unique. One is from Spencer, one's from Foxborough. I mean,
Well, I spoke with Sue Miola.
Okay.
She's selling a house tonight, or she has a showing. She was gonna try and come to the meeting.
okay. Did you ask her to write something?
She said she wanted to come to the meeting. I said, if you couldn't come, could you write? She said, I'm gonna try and come.
I mean, that's, I understand, real estate, but,
Right.
every town, every municipality is unique in its own. I mean,
Yeah.
West Boylston is one of the unique towns, so I was just curious.
But as far as appraisals and evaluations, I mean, you're really looking at your comps of houses within the area. And the days of when, you had your town brokers, and given the advent of MLS, and you sell, now sellyourhouse.com and those things, it's really made it a much broader and more widespread, and it's
So
not as
did
real estate
each one of
used
these realtors actually physically come to the town of West Boylston, look at real estate,
And looked at, yep,
and looked at
looked at comps.
Okay, all right, that's all I have for now,
Any other question, Charlie?
until we hear from the
No.
other attorney.
to be.
It looks like no other questions, maybe
Okay.
we'll ask them.
Nope, we'll step back and let Dawn and Justin come up.
Good evening. Donald O'Neill, I'm a lawyer in Worcester, here on behalf of Justin Gabriel, the owner of 57 Goodale Street. Couple of things. There have been 3 separate building inspectors, not just this building inspector, but the previous building inspector and the one before that. None of them have raised any issue as to the size of the building. The only issue there was a dispute as to where you measure the setback line. And that has to do with the fact that the property, the access to the property is over a private right-of-way, which is the same as the petitioner in this case has a similar situation. It's the exact opposite on the other side of the right-of-way. So the issue that arose before Mr. Gabriel, this is a kit which he purchased and had custom made based on his specifications. Prior to doing that, he met with the building inspector, reviewed everything, submitted plans, got a determination from him that he was going to, and this is just sort of by way of background, it's not relevant to what we're talking about, but I think it's important that you know the background. He was measuring the setback distance from the center line of the right-of-way, because there's a sort of an unusual provision in the West Boylston bylaw where you measure that, there's one provision that indicates that you measure from the center line of the street as opposed to the side of the street. And so the question in that case was, is this a street or is it something else? And the first building inspector, I believe, was measuring it from the center line of the right-of-way, and it's a kind of a crazy kind of right-of-way. I think you've all, if I could give you this for other reasons as well, but it's got sort of a triangle in the middle of it. Not sure why that was done, but it was, and that was signed off by the West Boylston Planning Board a number of years ago. So in any case, the question was, where do you measure the setback distance? The first building inspector determined that it should be from the center line of the street. He issued the building permit. Mr. Gabriel basically ordered the garage, which is really, in effect, it's a barn structure. It's being used as a garage, but it's essentially a pole barn. After he had done that and had already paid for it and committed to purchasing it, that building inspector left. A new interim building inspector came in, and I believe in response probably to complaints or challenges by his abutter, had a different opinion as to where the setback line should be measured. He felt that it should be measured from the edge of the property as opposed to the center line of the right-of-way. So that was the issue which led to the cease and desist. It had no bearing whatsoever on the size of the structure other than that it was too close to according to the second building inspector, it was too close to the right-of-way. So, and we actually I filed on his behalf a challenge to that building permit, and we filed the papers with your board, and we're prepared to come forward and to get a determination from you as to what the proper measurement was. He's under some constraints in terms of he's already purchased this, it's being shipped, it's being delivered, and rather than go through that process and the delay that would be involved, he decided just to basically to reduce the size of the garage by 10 feet. In fact, the original structure was 100 feet by 48 feet. It wasn't, I think Mr. Swarta had it basically the same, only he made it wider. It was actually longer. So it's always been 48 feet wide, but he cut 10 feet off. In effect, he had to throw 10 feet of the structure away because he's already paid for it. It's already been constructed. You know, it's already a loss in that respect. But by doing that, that in effect pulled the building back further from the right-of-way and brought him into compliance with the setback dimensional measurement from the edge of the property. That was the only issue on the cease and desist. There was never any question regarding that. I'm sorry, I missed one part. So the interim building inspector issued the cease and desist. We were prepared to challenge it. The new building inspector came in, who's the current building inspector. He, well aware that this is an issue that people are extremely focused on, and all of the different views on it, reviewed everything, and he decided that he actually agreed with the second building inspector. And based on that, we had the original building inspector who measured in one location. The next two measured from a different location. So we went with the opinion of 2 out of the 3 and decided to reduce the size of the building. And he issued a new, and just to clarify things in terms of, because the original building permit was for a larger structure, that permit was withdrawn and a new building permit was issued for the smaller structure with the setback from the edge of the property. And again, so all three have looked at it. None of them have said that you can't build this because it's too big. I think if you look at the provision in the bylaw, it clearly anticipates that you're going to have structures that are can accommodate more than 3 cars. And it says that those are allowed, provided it's for the owner's use. I think one of the things you may hear from the building inspector is he sent Mr. Gabriel, he got a commitment from Mr. Gabriel and a representation from him that this structure is for his own use. He's got no intention of renting it, which I think is probably the origin of that provision in the bylaw. It's entirely for his own use. He has an RV vehicle that's over 40 feet long. He's got a trailer that attaches to that that's probably 25 feet long. He's got a truck, he's got 2 SUVs, he's got motorcycles. He could fill this thing up. And all that could be parked out in his yard too. And these are all, registered vehicles. And this is just basically as a spot to store them. I admit, it's a big garage. It definitely is. But it's really, there are a lot of barns in town that are probably just as big. I mean, if someone had a couple of horses on their property and they wanted to have an accessory barn, you could easily have one this size. And in fact, that's the sort of lots of people use these structures as barns. So in this situation, he was sent a certified letter acknowledging, which he acknowledged, which puts him on notice that this is for his own personal use. And that's always been the case, and we have no problem with that. So I think that the planning board's letter says there's something unclear about the language where it says anything more than 3 wouldn't be considered accessory unless it's for the owner's use. Well, I don't find anything at all unclear about that. It's pretty clear that you can have them over 3 vehicles as long as it's limited to the owner's use. And I don't know how much clearer they could be. And I also looked at the definition that they had. I looked at Webster's actually, but for accessory it says aiding in certain acts or effects in a secondary or subordinate manner, additional, extra, something added to help in a secondary way. Well, the accessory, there's nothing in there that indicates that you can have an accessory use which is larger than your primary use. Now, the primary use in this case, obviously, is a residential lot. His house is there. He lives there, has lived there for 8 years and continues to live there. So the accessory part is, the accessory is a structure to house your vehicles and, your lawnmower, whatever you have in support of the residential use of the property. So there's no provision really which says, there's nothing really which says the accessory has to be smaller than, the primary. The primary use, clearly it's a residential lot, and he's storing and keeping personal property that anyone would have in their house or yard if you had that many vehicles. Now, there are a lot of people who, there may be people in town who collect cars. I mean, certainly cars, there are a lot of people who do that. A lot of the newer, larger homes have 3, 4 car garages. I think the planning board, in stating that there's an ambiguity there, just because you say it's not clear, I don't think makes it unclear. Also, their provision says that they suggest that maybe accessories should be limited to no more than 25% of the footprint of the primary structure. So, and I would say that if that were adopted, or if that were the rule, it'd be almost every garage in town would probably be in violation of their assessment of what an accessory use would be. So the accessory really is, you have to look at the use of the property. It's still being used for residential purposes. It's a garage that goes along with a house. And in that sense, it's, the garage wasn't there first and they're adding a house. The house is there the garage is in support of the house. That's what makes it accessory. And I think it's perfectly clear, again, that this is allowed. You've had 3 building inspectors. In effect, what they're saying is all 3 building inspectors, whose job it is to interpret the bylaw, have got it wrong. And in fact, not just one, but all 3 of them have been wrong. And it's maybe a situation where, maybe people don't like it. I'm sorry if they don't like it. But you have to be able to rely upon the bylaw. If you look at the bylaw and there's no restriction, there's no limitation on it, you go to the building inspector, they issue you a building permit, you then go out and purchase a garage, and then, he really felt aggrieved that after he had done that, the second building inspector said, hold it, I don't agree. You're too close to the, right-of-way. And his view was, well, that's why I went and checked it out, pulled a permit, and now I'm told that I'm too close. And basically, had to eat the cost of materials that he can't use and basically has to throw away. So I think the bylaw, like it or not, says what it says. And if people feel that there should be some limitation on that, then you would need to probably go back and put it in there, or you would have to have a limitation on lot coverage, something along those lines, because otherwise, basically, what they're suggesting is that it's entirely at the discretion of the building inspector, with really unlimited discretion in terms of he can decide that, no, I don't like the looks of that garage. I think that might be detrimental. I'm not going to approve it. I don't like the color of it. I think that one's a little too big. I think that one, some other reason, no rhyme or reason in terms of how would you make that determination on a case-by-case basis. I also think that there are other garages in town that have been approved that are probably just as big as this. So I believe it's consistent, whether you like it or not. It's his right, and you're entitled to basically to rely upon the bylaw when you pull permits, and you've got 3 building inspectors basically saying there's no issue with it. I think you should be entitled to rely upon that and not have a project stopped, not once, but attempted to be stopped twice. Let me think for a minute. The other thing that was mentioned was the non-conformity of this lot. Well, the only thing that really makes it non-conforming, aside from probably most of the houses in that entire area would be non-conforming as to area, because it's actually a pretty good sized lot. The real non-conformity relates to probably the access, which is off a private right-of-way as opposed to the street. And there's a provision in 48, Section 6, and it's also, if you look at your own bylaw, under non-conforming uses, there's an exception for single and two-family uses, where there's a requirement for, other than that, that you have to show that you would need a special permit to make a modification. But that, if you look at your bylaw and also 48A Section 6, this does not apply to single and two-family unless you're increasing the nonconformity. If you're increasing the nonconformity, then that would trigger the requirement of a special permit. In this case, the nonconformity is the area and the frontage. This has nothing to do with either one of those. It's not like that would be if he were reducing the size of his lot and wanted to cut a piece of property off his property and transfer it. He would be further reducing the size of the lot. That would not be allowed. But in this case, the provision to say that this is non-conforming, so you shouldn't be allowed to do it somehow, is entirely off base. Because the non-conformity has nothing to do with the actual structure. And in terms of you saying that it has to be in compliance with the dimensional requirements of the zoning bylaw. And in fact, we are in compliance with the dimensional requirements of the zoning bylaw. So in that context, what I believe and maintain that means is you have to meet the setback requirements. So, and he does meet all of the setback requirements. And the fact that he can have a house, a swimming pool, and this garage, and meet all of the setback requirements is an indication that, you know, this is not an undersized lot by any stretch. He's able to meet all of those requirements. If he couldn't, he wouldn't be allowed to build this garage. If he didn't, if the lot couldn't accommodate the garage, you would know because it wouldn't meet the setback requirements. The other thing that I'd given you there, the plan that I showed you, the location where the garage is, there was a tennis court there that was, I think, 125 feet long.
60 by 120.
60 by 120 feet, surrounded by a 12-foot high
Fence.
cyclone fence. And that is basically the location where he's putting the garage. So that structure, and that was there when he purchased the property. In fact, it encroached upon the right-of-way. That's been pulled back. That was an area which had previously been developed and used by prior owners. And that's essentially the location, primary location where the garage has been. The other thing, I had seen one of the letters from one of the brokers, which was attached to the application. The one that I looked at seems to indicate that an opinion as to value based on a 6,000 square foot garage, I think it says, last paragraph. Their opinion that there would be a diminution in value based on a 6,000 square foot garage. So our garage is big, but it's not 6,000 square feet. So if this person actually came out to the property, I'm not sure how much time they spent there, where they came up with a 6,000 square foot figure. But that's basically a third more than what we do have. The planning board too also has trouble with the numbers. At one point they say that it's, we give the dimensions as 90 by 60, I believe.
Because they're including that 12-foot hang.
Overhang, which is, yeah, that's, and they also, but then if you do the math.
54,000 square, there was some typo.
Their math is, it doesn't work either.
There was a typo, we
Yeah.
do recognize that.
But we are still talking about a 30-foot high structure.
It's not 30 feet high.
Say it again?
It's not 30 feet high.
How tall is it?
You guys should have the plans on file, don't you, for the building department?
It's close to 30, maybe it's 28 or whatever, but we were talking about a structure which is fully compliant with the height restrictions in town.
I'm just asking, I mean, so
Yes.
it's intended to house, you know, you mentioned SUVs, a trailer,
Yep.
a truck, an RV. Why do you need a 30-foot high structure?
Well, because if you have the width, you have to have a roof over it, and you don't want a flat roof.
No, I
Yeah.
don't want a flat
Sure.
roof, I'm just, that seems like,
Yeah, it's an engineered garage, barn structure. And, you know, you want to shed snow. And it's also to maintain the, you know, the integrity of the building. You want to have the roof. And secondly, a height limitation, if you're in compliance with, that's why we have height limitations.
I'm just asking a question out of
Right.
my own
I know.
curiosity. I'm a homeowner,
Yep.
I'm considering a garage on my own property. I'm actually trying to keep it below 20 feet so that I don't get in the
Yeah.
way of my own neighbors. So I'm wondering why,
Well, if it's,
what you're putting in. I'm asking.
If
say I wanna hear it.
so your average RV out there, height-wise, you're anywhere from 12 to 13 feet, which requires a 14-foot high-lift door in order to back it in. So at that 14-foot high-lift door, when it reaches to the very top of its point, is actually almost at 18 feet.
Okay.
So therefore, you need an 18-foot sidewall in order to be able to accommodate a 14-foot high-lift door.
Okay, all right.
So that's why the structure was built as high as it was.
As high as, okay.
Yeah.
Would you have a lift in there?
No lift as of right now, no.
Not one right now, but you could put a lift in there.
I mean, you could put anything You could have anything in there, but that's not
But
my
it's
intention.
just gonna be personally for you.
Yes, yeah, I own commercial property in other towns. I have other businesses in other towns, and that's where all my commercial stuff is.
Yeah, I think what he's clarifying is that this is for his own personal use. There's no, he's not making any use other than personal vehicles of
Yeah,
his
but
own.
it's
in the
not a
property.
hobby, it's a business.
There is no
What's a business?
It was a business.
What is?
The garage is a business.
What garage? The garage is
Or
being
garage
built?
that's
That's what
being
Charlie's
built.
asking. This
No,
is-
it's a residential garage.
Yeah, but you say you've got other trucks and stuff that are gonna come in there.
No,
No,
I'm not
he
saying
said
that. I'm
he
saying
said
that I
the
have
opposite.
commercial property in other towns and
Oh,
cities.
yeah, okay.
That
I'm
I
just- I'm
So this is
trying
all
to
just your
clarify
personal
my-
It's all my personal stuff, correct, yes.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, the various rumors floating around that he was going to use this in connection with his own business, his other businesses that he has and so forth, which is completely untrue. So, I mean, he's adding that in, it's not meaning to confuse you, but this is for his use. The building inspector has clearly informed him that it's for his use, has served him with a certified letter saying that if any other use would not be permitted, and that is fully what the intention was, and that's what we expect. I think he was just trying to, responding to rumors that, this is, he's going to be running a business out of it, that type of thing.
If you don't mind my asking, what is your business?
Motorcycles, and then I own a retail store, firearms store in Worcester.
Oh,
Yep,
which one?
the gun parlor.
Oh,
Yep,
I do have a few questions for you.
yes.
What's the, for that,
Oh.
what's the lot size? The lot size for the record as well as for the public to know? The lot
I
size?
believe, I think I can tell you in a second, but I just heard the proponent, I believe he said that it was,
1,000 square, I think.
Is it
about
35,760?
35,763 square
Yeah.
feet.
And then the house living space is 12,000, the 1,270?
No, that's actually inaccurate too, because I had another building permit at the beginning of the year where I completed a 1,000 square foot addition to my house. I also have a full finished basement as well to the house, so when they're counting the 1,300 square feet, it's counting top floor. So if
And
you
not
collectively-
including the additional-
If you include the
What's the,
addition,
what's the total living space?
total living space, 3,600 square feet.
okay.
And what was the first building permit was approved for what? How big the garage?
it was
48
by 100.
So that was 48 by 100,
Yeah.
and also you have the 12 feet overhang. So that overhang also occupies the space, right? That was, if I go back and see the building permit, it says 60 by 100. 60 by 100. So that was the one, the planning board took it.
Yeah, that was the first one that he issued, because he's factoring in an overhang that's not an enclosed structure. It's not enclosed to the building. Yeah.
I don't know whether the building inspector includes, depends whether you're talking about the footprint. The footprint
Footprint of the building.
is 48 by
The actual structure
90.
with sidewalls, enclosed structure is 48 by 90.
But the building permit, first building permit was issued for,
The first
60 by-
building inspector was including the overhang, so no different than you including an overhang of 4 feet off the side of this building. He was actually factoring in
Yeah.
the overhang extending out over the
Okay.
side of it.
yeah. So, and it does have a pool and 2 storage shed, right?
Yep, I have a in-ground pool.
What was the garage structure?
What,
Made up of what?
what is it?
Is a wood structure?
A garage?
Yeah,
No,
the
the
structure of the
one
garage, what's the material that is
It's
being
metal.
used?
It's manufactured by EPS Building Systems. They're the third largest in the country for pre-engineered pole barns, as well as energy panel systems.
It's a metal structure, right?
Metal, wood and metal. Yep, metal roof. Uses everything on the garage, actually, too, has been color matched to my house, to the roof, to the siding, including the white trim that comes down on the sides. I mean, it's identical matching to the house.
The petitioners, they do mention, Mr. Gabriel has not accurately represented the boundary lines for the project, such that the location of the structure may violate the setback requirements. Would you
Com-
like to address?
Completely false. We've had the property surveyed 3 times.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
5 in total, but 3,
Right.
yeah.
No
3
issue
plans.
whatsoever.
So the property was surveyed and the boundary lines are,
Crystal clear.
so you have any documents for that?
The building
The
inspector.
building
has-
inspector
has it.
had required a survey, we provided that. If we were dumb enough to build something that violated the setback, it would have to be torn down.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yep, I have a question. Mr. O'Neill, could you come up here for a second?
Sure.
I have a question. This was, what, Mr. Sweater? Okay, all right. This is Mr. Gabriel's house, correct? If Mr. Gabriel wants to come up, he can come up and tell me. I'm assuming this is his pool.
I don't think it is.
Because this is 60.
There's a lot of pools here.
Okay, that's Mrs. Silva's. So where is your house?
My house is right here.
That's your house?
That's that was the tennis court originally.
That was the tennis court.
This is the road that comes in.
Okay.
The other neighbor abuts here, my land actually, it moves all the way up and
Okay.
then all the way over. That was 60
This
by
is
120 structure. That was right there.
Okay.
That was the tennis court, actually built in the right of way by
Because
previous ownership.
his pool.
Yes,
is
I saw
right
that.
here.
I saw that wherever it was. In one of the things I saw that.
I have current area languages if you need them.
No, I saw that it was built into the, the tennis court was, part of it was in the right of way.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, so the right of way jogs, the way it jogs, it actually jogs like if you were to come across the roof of that car.
Okay.
Over this way.
All right.
To about this point right here and then cuts back across.
okay, all right. That's, okay. Mr. Tigger, I have a question for you.
Yes.
This measurement from the center line of the private way, is what, Mr. O'Neill, is that accurate? Is that how you measure?
When I first came on board, I read all the documents.
Right.
To the point where I was making my decision. And I interpreted the bylaw as saying that it had to be measured from the property line.
Okay,
And that's how I was talking to Mr. Gabriel, telling him that your building's too large to fit into that plan. And if you were to do it, you have to be within that setback of your property line, not the center of the road.
okay. Now, as far as the setbacks of where this building is actually being constructed, does Mr. Gabriel meet all the setbacks?
Yes. As far as the print that I got from his registered surveyed documents that you have in front of you,
Okay.
can I look at that, make sure I'm
Sure.
looking at the same one?
Is that the one?
Yes, yeah.
So he does meet all the...
All the
Okay.
setbacks, yes.
Now, my other question is that the planning board, in their write-up, they are considering the overhang as part of, the overall structure. So, in their case, they're saying that it's a 60 by 90 square foot building, okay? So, here it's saying 48 by 90 with the, is the 12-foot overhang, is that inclusive in the overall square footage?
Customarily, no, because we usually go by what is contained within the sidewalls of a structure.
Okay.
It could be like a farmer's porch, has an overhang, and you have like a 4-foot overhang into the front of your house. That's not considered part of your square footage of your house. So the answer to that is customarily, no.
Okay.
I did not figure the overhang into any of the footprint.
Okay, so basically, the structure is a 48 by 90 foot.
That's correct.
Okay, now, I know that,
I think, with the overhang of 12 feet overhang, 48 by 90,
Yeah.
there will be a overhang, 12 feet overhang.
yeah, but the overhang is not part
But
of,
that's what the first building inspector, he counted for that.
and that's what he's saying that it's not. You
Customarily.
have to go by him, because he's the one that issued the building permit, okay? The other question that I have, and I don't know if you, but Mr. Gabriel and his attorney has stated that at one time there was a tennis court there on the property. It was a 60 by 120?
Yes. Yeah, that you have the plan up
Right,
there
okay,
showing
so
it.
60 by
And that's
120.
drawn by the surveyor.
And it went into the right-of-way.
Yeah, and encroached
So
it
if I'm
by
looking,
about-
if I'm looking at that, I'm saying, okay, that's 7,200 square feet, 60 by 120, okay? Well, this 48 by 90 is is only 3,520 square feet. So it's half of what the tennis court was, but yet the tennis court was, didn't seem like anybody was complaining about the
I
tennis
knew
court.
nothing about the tennis court.
Okay, well, I'm just,
At that
35 by 90 come from?
what?
You just said 35 by 90? Where does that come from?
What?
Sorry, 48 by
48 by 90.
Okay, I thought you heard you say 35, I just
No.
want to make sure you never knew that.
No. What I'm saying is that 3,520, that's what this square footage of this building is, 48 by 90. That's what it comes out to, 35, 36, wait a minute, 36, 7, 4320, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
4320.
Okay, that's what I got.
Whereas the tennis court was 7,200, okay? So,
And question for the board, just because this hasn't come up to me before. Do we have height requirements for stuff like this?
and that's the other question I had for,
It's not that, you can, I calculated out, it's roughly 25 and a half feet tall.
Okay.
It has a 412 pitch roof,
Okay.
so it's a very low pitch roof, so it's not 30 feet.
that's all I have.
At least according to the plan, it's not 30 feet.
Do you have any question?
I do not.
Charlie?
Charlie, any questions?
Nothing.
Mr. Chairman, may I just comment very
Sure.
briefly on Mr. O'Neill's comments? First of all, I do want to cite in my letter, my filing letter, I did cite the Mass case, which talked about, even in a case where something would typically be a allowed accessory use, such as the garage, that the magnitude of that garage may in fact make it no longer incidental and may disqualify it as an accessory use. So on a smaller size, it might fit, etc. Second point, on the, my brother, Mr. O'Neill, in his comment about anything over 3. I mean, I always like to do, at least in some way, argue in the absurd, which is that by that standard, you could build a 25-car garage on a residential piece of property. Clearly, the detrimental standard, the customary standard that have to be met for an accessory use, which I agree, but you can have over 3 cars as a residence. I don't disagree with Don on that at all. But as far as where that goes, whether you can locate that in a front yard, Don talked about barns. There are a lot of barns. I live in Grafton. We have a ton of barns. It's still a residential community, which gives it character. But those barns are generally not in the front lot. Lastly, as far as the numbers on the house, Mr. Gabriel indicated that the house was about 3,600 square feet. I do not have any record of that information. According to the assessor's records, it said 1,200 something, and Mr. Tigner, one of Mr. Tigner's letters noted that there was an additional 500 square foot addition. So on the town's official records, from what I see, it's about 1,700 or 1,800. I'm not saying that he's wrong. I've not seen any evidence of that in a building permit or something along those lines that would indicate that that square footage is correct.
I agree with you. The assessor's records indicates like 1,750. So there is an addition of 500 square feet.
Thank you.
If I could briefly, I think one of the clarification, some of this house is a split, basically. So I think what it is he's measuring, including the lower level as living space, because in fact it is living space, but the way the assessors view these things, if you're certain below grade, if you're not a full story above grade, I believe they don't really, in their calculations, it's not really treated as living space. But if you measure it out, actually, you would have more space to use for a living than actually the assessors will recognize. Just and briefly, 2 other quick things. I did see the case that Mr. Swarter had mentioned in his materials that he had given you. One thing I would say about cases when and it's particularly when you're dealing with different towns with different bylaws and different wording, it's not always possible to transfer one over to the next. And I think it's probably unlikely, I have no idea what town that is from, but I would bet that there's probably not a provision in the bylaw which specifically says that anything over, a footnote on the accessory that says anything over 3 would not be considered accessory unless it's for the owner's use. So I think
Are you talking about that case either?
talking about the case where he said that were indication that really seems to indicate that, and I think I think they talk about, more than 4 or something along those lines, that that could be a situation where the accessory could be not allowed as being beyond what would be typical. But I'm saying in your case, if the bylaw were silent and just said accessory without the added information that you have, which clearly envisions and anticipates and allows for garages over 3 for owner's use. Now, I think it would be a little bit of a stretch to say that, well, yes, they meant that for 1 more garage space. No questions asked up to 3, but if you want 4, it can only be for your use. Well, if that were the case, then they would have said it. So they clearly have left it open-ended, and it does seem to indicate clearly, I believe, that if it's for the owner's personal use, and it's in support of and in connection with his residential use, then it's an accessory use. And in terms of the scenario, in terms of a 25-bay garage, well, if you had a 25-bay garage, you would need an awfully big lot, because otherwise you couldn't meet the setback requirements. So you would have to have a huge lot to have a 25-bay garage. And if you had a 100-acre lot and you had a 10,000 square foot house, then maybe you collect cars, and that could be considered an accessory use if you meet all of the setback requirements. And I think the control that you have typically in terms of limiting the size of these structures is the lot size itself. And the way that the bylaw accomplishes this and controls buildings, the size of the buildings, is they specifically require that you have to meet the setback requirements. So, so you can't get too big. You can't get any bigger than the land that you have. The more land that you have, the bigger the garage you can have. And in our situation, we can accommodate this garage and meet all of the setback requirements. So I think that that's the control that exists, for that purpose. And again, I just still think that, people may not like it. They may think it's too big. All of that is, I think, should not play into the ability of people in town to basically rely upon the zoning ordinance and rely upon permits that they receive with some confidence that it's not going to be pulled away from them, really just because somebody doesn't like the fact that it's a big garage. Thank you.
Did you get a chance, Mr. Sweater, the Burnham versus Hadley, 58 Mass, App Court, 479, 484, 2000, did you get a chance to look at that?
I saw it in his brief, and that was just...
I just asked Mr. Phelan to look this up, and the way I read that, it has nothing to do with this. They're talking about an accessory, they're talking about home occupation. It has nothing to do with the garage, so I don't see how that applies to this.
Well, there are all kinds of accessory uses, and I think, sure.
Would you like to take this?
Well, yeah, I would. We talked about the facts of cases, we talked about the law of cases. The facts are not exactly on point, certainly with this case, and I never said that in what I referred to. What I did say was the finding of the court was that analyzing accessory uses as to whether or not an accessory use by the magnitude of use, by its magnitude, can be disqualified as an accessory use. That's law. That's being applied to those facts. And what I'm saying here is that case cites the law, which I'm asking you to apply to this set of facts.
So it was an accessory, and then when the employees are increased, so no longer an accessory.
Okay. I just don't understand how you can talk about two different things. How you can talk about a home occupancy and how you can talk about a garage. It seems like two different things.
I think I think I understand where you were going with that as far as the magnitude of the accessory use, but in this specific case, it seems like the accessory use was a business.
Yeah.
A home occupation business, which is not what you're trying to do here.
And that's how I interpret it, okay?
I
So,
mean, as you can rent on the second floor, right?
No, I already have one of those.
So,
I think that would give your neighbors some cause for complaint.
Yeah, I keep that in the city.
okay, at this time, I'd like to open up to the public. Any questions from the public?
Well, I live,
Can you give your name?
my name is Christine Delaney,
your address?
Address?
9 Goodale Street.
Thank you.
I live, what would I say, in front of me? My backyard would go across the right of way, and then there's this structure that he's building. We talked about the tennis courts and how they exceeded the limit. There were beautiful tennis courts in a rural setting. And then Mr. Gabriel, I believe, built a dirt bike track there for a short while, which we just dearly loved in the neighborhood. And now he's building this structure, enormous, on a gravel base that is just unbelievably monstrous. It may be allowed, but believe me, it is not something that is helpful to our neighborhood. We live here. We love that area. I guess that's all I can say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Not hearing anything else from the public, I move to close the public hearing.
At this time, I do like to read on the planning boards. We got a planning board, and did we get anything from any other board?
Toby, did we get anything from Conservation?
They just said it wasn't in their purview.
And how about Board of Health?
I haven't heard anything back from them. I asked a couple of times.
Just so that everybody understands, one of the requirements from this board is that when we get a petition, we have to send it out to the Planning Board, the Conservation, and the Board of Health for input. And then they send us input. And the Board of Health and the Conservation, they don't have any input. The only one that had input was the Planning Board. So just so that everybody understands where that's coming from.
You have to read this.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Mr. Chairman? Can I ask, once this structure, or whatever is 4,000 square feet, the 12-foot overhang, is that included in the structure, the extra 12 feet coming off? Because I've been told that's the footprint of the building, so it's 90 by 60 total.
I did ask the specific question to the building inspector. Do you like to address? So he's asking the 12-foot overhang, will it include this?
Is a 12-foot overhang going on the building or not?
Customarily, it doesn't. It's just like I said, a farmer's porch.
No, I understand.
It's not considered to be part of the footprint.
Is it going on the building though? Is it gonna be the roof gonna be 90 by 60?
The base of the roof, if that's the way you want to say it, yes, that'll be.
Okay, so there's gonna be a 12-foot overhang on the side.
There will be a 12-foot overhang.
Be an overhang like
So what
like a
supports
farmer's
that? Is there
porch.
some supporting that in the ground?
According to the print, it is like a
Freestanding?
sonotube and a post.
Okay, so is that impeding on her property?
No.
That 12 feet add-on's not gonna
No,
impede
it's,
the 25-foot line?
it's the,
I just have a lot of confusion. I seen a 100 by 60 foot plan, a 90 by 48 foot plan, a 90 by 60 plan. I'm just confused on which one's going in.
Go ahead.
This is the corner. That's of the overhang is 26 feet and it's 25 feet required, 31 feet to build.
So, but this is not considered part of the footprint of the building.
Temporarily, customarily, no, the overhang is not included.
Oh, and you're gonna come check these
I have told them already that ASBIL has to be supplied, so.
I'm just making sure because I've seen the plans all these different ways now.
As you recall, I did have Mr. Gabriel make sure that his boundaries were correct, so that when I do go out and check, to make sure that it is within setbacks, that when I look at the plan, it is going to be correct.
Okay.
And he had, I think at one time you had a concern, and I made sure that the post was put in the right place.
One more question. With this roof, with this big overhang coming on, and if we get a 2-inch rainstorm, is there any drainage on this? Where's the water going? Because I look at it as gonna go right into the right of way which she owns. That whole piece of property is her property. Do we have a plan for drainage in this project? That's a
Would you
huge
like to
footprint.
address-
Yes, well, I have told Mr. Gabriel that he has to provide for drainage for the roof, runoff on the roof into some type of system that's going to be placed behind the garage in the back part of his property. Yes, I did tell him he had to do a drainage.
Do you have plans for that?
Yeah, I haven't seen the plans of those yet.
Yeah, my engineer already has it.
So it hasn't been brought to the...
I have not seen anything with the drainage plan at all, no.
So you need to see that plan before the roof goes up.
I would have to see, exactly, well, before he puts any gutters or any
Right.
type of downspouts or anything, I would like to see that plan, that's correct.
Mr. O'Neill, can we make sure that that happens?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, and the sooner the better? Like
Yes.
yesterday was better than today, than tomorrow?
Yeah, no, and that's, you know, that is, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
That's not why we're here on.
No,
the
I understand that,
Yeah.
but, you know, there was a question brought up.
Yeah, no,
about-
no, absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, the building inspector saying that he's already talked to Mr. Gabriel about it, but he still has not, Mr. Gabriel just said that his engineer has it, but it has not been brought to the building inspector, and we want to make sure that the building inspector gets that so that he can see that it's all been, so that gentleman's question is answered. Because we don't want to see that water run, I don't want
Yeah,
them
no.
coming
Yeah, my
down saying that
engineer's
the water's
already-
running into their
Yeah,
property.
engineer's been to the site 3
Okay,
times.
all
We
right.
did
We'll get
soil
it to them right
samples and
away.
everything.
All
so,
right,
yeah.
I'm going to read the letter to that the planning board wrote to the ZBA. It's dated November 19, 2018, and it states, "At the November 14, 2018 meeting of the West Boylston Planning Board, the board reviewed the above petition to the Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA, at the 57 Gooddale Street property. The petitioner requests that the permit to construct a 60 by 90 garage on the property be made void. The planning board recommends that the ZBA void the building permit issued for this construction. The property in question is an existing non-conforming structure, since the lot does not meet the minimum area required in the zoning bylaw and does not have frontage along a public way. There was no evidence submitted showing that the building inspector made a determination as required under section 1.4.b, especially relative to the end phrase, alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing use. The wording in the zoning bylaw, section 5.1, accessory use, is not readily clear. A garage as an accessory use is permitted in the single residence district, but is also limited to those that are not detrimental to a residential neighborhood. The limitation on the magnitude of the use is not clear. It appears to note that the garage space for more than 3 automobiles is not considered an accessory use, but the meaning of the final clause, except for owner's use, is not clear to the planning board. Section 5.1 notes, in single residence, general residence, and business districts, accessory use is permitted on the same lot with a customary incident to any of the uses permitted in section 3.2 and not detrimental to a residential neighborhood. All accessory uses shall comply with the dimensional requirements for the primary use to which they are an accessory as stated in section 4.2. Swimming pools and racket courts are permitted as accessory structures in all districts and require a building permit. They shall be fenced or otherwise protected against intrusion as required by the state building code. Racket court fencing shall be at least 8 feet high. Swimming pools shall comply with the town's general bylaws, Article 15, Section 6. The term accessory use in this section shall not include garage space for more than 3 automobiles except for owner's use. There was no plan included in the petition, but the facts revolve around the definition of accessory use. Is a 60 by 90 metal garage building an appropriate accessory use at the proposed location? The assessor's data indicates that the footprint of the existing residence is about 1,200 square feet. The proposed 60 by 90 garage footprint is 3,600 square feet and almost 3 times larger than the existing residency. Therefore, the primary use of the lot appears to be as a garage, which is not allowed under section 3.2 of the zoning. The garage use is only allowed as an accessory use incident to a residential use. The idea being that the accessory use should not be larger than the primary use. The Merriam-Webster definitions of accessory include the idea of it being secondary or minor. We believe that the intent of this wording was to limit an accessory structure to being smaller or lesser than the primary structure on a site. A reasonable interpretation of the phrase accessory use could not be a use that is larger than the use to which it is proposed to be accessory. The petitioner provided evidence of the inappropriate size of the garage, the location proposed for the front yard, and the detrimental financial effects on abutting properties. The planning board recommends the zoning board take the above information into consideration when deciding upon an administrative appeal at 57 Gooddale Street and void the building permit. Thank you for your opportunity to comment on this proposal, and if you need any further clarification, please contact me or one of our members at our convenience, Paul Anderson, Chair, West Boylston Planning Board.
At this time, this is the only one recommendation we received, none other board. We did not receive any other boards. And if I do understand, this is for this hearing is for the administrative appeal on the building inspector's decision. I do understand that the building permit B18-213 was issued by Mr. Bentley, the very first building inspector, for the construction of a detached garage, 48 by 100 square feet. This permit was issued to Mr. Justin Gabriel, 57 Goodale Street. Again, for the record, stop work order was issued by Mr. Christland, interim building inspector, on August 31st. The key reason he mentioned was minimum yard setback requirements of 25 feet. So he did not meet that time, minimum yard setback. Whereas our current building inspector did issue a building permit for the construction of 48 by 90 square feet, 90 feet detached garage. So now we are with the administrative appeal. So the garage is an accessory to primary. The primary is the house. The house is about 1,750 square feet. The garage is 4,320 square feet. So that's without the overhang. And also it's a 30 feet height of and the structure is wood and metal. So the bylaw, section 5.1 notes, in single residence, general residence, business district, accessory use is permitted on the same lot with and customarily usually incident to any of the uses permitted in section 3.2 and not detrimental to the residential neighborhood. So there is another term also. The term accessory use in this section shall not include the garage space for more than 3 automobiles except for owner's use. So with this, if no other questions from the public, I entertain motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing. If there's no other, oh wait a minute.
Matt Nasuti, 63 Goodale Street. Just to be clear, it's a landlocked property, and this structure is going in his front yard. He can't see it from his backyard, but it's our backyard, it's our front yards also. It's his front yard. If you can find another building or a structure in town, or any town, that big in someone's front yard, I'd be surprised.
Any other question?
Mr. Chairman, just minor clarification. I think the testimony we had from the building inspector was it was closer to 25 feet than 30.
25 feet of, the height.
25 height, yes.
Okay.
All right, now I'll make a motion to, oh, wait a minute.
Linda Ritter, 69 Goodale Street. What does constitute a detriment to the neighborhood? I've heard that word several times. What's a detriment?
Would you like to answer?
Sure. I can frankly take many forms. It can affect property values, as we've indicated tonight. It would affect the property values in the neighborhood. It could be a use that has congestion, that affects view shed and aesthetics. Under your bylaw, if you have a congested area or a density with a lot, which in this case you have an undersized lot, which you're allowing someone to put double, 3 times the size of the building on a lot that's already non-conforming, which I don't think council really addressed. Those are all things but it is really a sense of what the board feels is detrimental, is negative, causes damage to the remainder of the neighborhood. And I think the fact that as many people have turned out here, abutters, and not all of them have spoken, but if you ask how many people are here to oppose this, I think if you get a show of hands of who's here to oppose this tonight, these are the neighbors. These are the people who are going to be looking at this structure. I've seen some pictures of this being up already, which from backyards of people who don't even live on this cul-de-sac that are going to have this in their view shed. And to me, that is detrimental. It's a negative to them. And I don't think anybody here would deprive Mr. Gabriel of putting a relatively reasonably sized garage on his property. When he came to my client initially, he said he wanted to put a garage there. She'd have an objection. And she said, no, if you want to put a garage there, it's okay. But he never came to her and told her he was going to build this. And
What's the normal 4-car garage size will be?
I said, I researched online, 1,440 square feet for a 4-car. And I don't think the objective was a 5-car. If it was 2,000, it was about a 20-foot height. I don't think it would be a big deal, but you saw a 30-foot garage in a front yard. And with all due respect, I can't imagine, and I've sat on my planning board and I sat as a selectman in my town. I cannot imagine sitting on that side and not acknowledging in towns like Grafton, where I live, like West Boylston here, that this size building in a front yard in a pastoral community that prides itself on its open space and its quality of life. I just can't believe that that is not considered detrimental to neighborhoods in this town. So with that, I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Well, I think it's important to, if the detrimental is in the eye of the beholder. And clearly, that section, the language, we're focusing on a structure, and I think the provision relates to accessory uses as being normal and customary accessory, all sorts of accessory uses, such as possibly, a home occupation, or that some accessory uses allow for people to run businesses out of their homes, provided they're no customers, and this type of thing. Those are other accessory uses in addition to, let's say, the more typical, in our situation, the garage. So I think you could think of somebody who was running some sort of a home operation business where you could see that could be detrimental in terms of, maybe there's more traffic, or maybe there's noise, or there's dust, or something along those lines. In this case, we're really talking about, it's a little bit harder, I think, to define because it's a structure. It's a garage, and clearly it is, it's used, again, I do think it's supportive of his living on the property. It's his lot. His property is well-maintained. It was a wreck when he bought it 8 years ago. He's renovated it completely. The structure that he's building is first quality, very expensive. The roof is going to match the roof on his house in terms of asphalt shingles. It's a metal building, but it is a coated metal that matches his house color. It's got trim boards. It's not an ugly, everyone keeps saying it's a metal structure, like it's going to be a rusted, something that you'd see in a burnt-out section of Detroit or something. You know, it's a metal structure, but it will be the same color as the house. It's got the same roof. So I think if you set up a situation where it's entirely up to the building inspector whether he decides whether he likes it or not, and whether it's detrimental or not, because I think that's not going to work. And, you know, you're going to think that your garage is fine, but your neighbors, you don't like it, so it's detrimental. And I think, again, there's a need, if this is a concern that people have, to address this by way of an amendment to the bylaw which clarifies it or gives some parameters or you know, puts in, as they say, some lot coverage limitations, something along those lines. But the way that it's written, you know, I think you're entitled to develop your property in accordance with the zoning bylaw. And I do maintain that, you know, like it or not, doesn't matter whether you like it or whether you think it's beautiful or ugly, it's his right to put it there. And that's what we're asking you to, again, in closing, it's not just this building inspector, it's the guy before him and the guy before him too. So I don't think there's any much room for debate or doubt. The building inspectors, seems pretty clear to them. It seems clear to me too. So I'd ask that you would support the building inspector's decision. Thank you.
Can I have 43 Goodell Street, Laura de Moraes? Well, see, he keeps saying that it doesn't matter if you like it or not, but at the end, I can speak to all the neighbors here. We lived there more than 12 years, and we love that place. I love all the trees. I agree. They're his property. He came and took like more than 20 trees. So nobody's happy right now. Nobody's looking at that. This is at the end, is our kids, our properties. We should agree. This is a neighborhood. If someone just can't, it's not like close to their house. Maybe I shouldn't speak this way, but this is our house. This is our place that our kids are growing up and see that horrible thing building in the center of every single house around. Nobody agree. Nobody's happy. So that's it. Nobody's happy. He shouldn't build that horrible giant thing there. This is not like move to like a 5-10 acres property and build whatever there, but not in this little small place that we all happy that we are all sad. Nobody's happy there. All the neighborhood should agree with something like that. That's all.
Tim Shea, 55 Woodhill. Very similar, knock 30 feet off. Have you seen Flag RV's new building? Knock 30 feet off that building, that's in our front yard now. That's basically what we're gonna have to look at every single day, waking up, going to work, coming home, enjoying our yard. That's what we have to look at now every day. If you can picture that building. Very similar, minus 30, that's 120 feet, take 30 feet off, you're 90 feet. And they're 50 feet deep, not 60.
Thank you.
Last question, 55 Woodhill. Linda had asked me, and I didn't know the answer to this. Are there going to be floodlights 30 feet high? Like, what are the lighting structures going to be on this garage? Because she looks right at it from her deck.
Do you like to say?
I haven't determined any of that. I haven't.
Okay.
George, is that something that you need
That's
to
something
see?
he'll have to apply for as an electrical permit, which he has not done
No,
yet.
their question is, are there floodlights?
Which way they're pointing?
Which way they are? Are there floodlights focusing their their home?
There, at this point, no.
But we haven't
But in
seen any?
respect-
I haven't seen a print, he has not presented an
Hmm.
application for any electrical work on that garage.
One other question. I just don't know. So he's crossing, I own the right of way, it's deeded in, I pay the taxes on that right of way. How is he accessing the garage? He has to go over the right of way? Is he allowed to pave a strip of a driveway to his garage? What are the rules there?
You didn't get the
Yeah,
question?
it's just really not for the zoning board, but yes, he can. I mean, if you have a right-of-way, she owns a right-of-way, but subject to his right to use. So that's not, we don't have any concerns about being able to access that's the purpose of the right-of-way, is to provide access to your property. So he intends to use the right-of-way, which he currently uses to provide access to his house, to provide access to the garage. And I feel confident that there's absolutely no problem with that. And the right-of-way is to access the property, and if you have a garage on your property, you can use it for that purpose.
Or can he pay it?
How long has that right-of-way been intact? Can you tell me that? In other words, Mrs. Silva says that she owns the right-of-way, but obviously, before, when they built that
Well,
house...
the right-of-way was constructed by somebody long before either one of them owned the property. There is a copy of the plan. It's a planning board approved plan, by the way.
So it was a right-of-way before Mr. Gabriel bought the house?
It was a right-of-way, I believe, before she bought her house, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
When Mr. Gabriel bought the house, is there anything in his deed that states about that right-of-way?
Yes.
What does
That he
it
has the
say?
right to use it.
He has the right to use it?
Yeah.
Okay,
We have it in our deed.
okay, so you both do?
It specifically states he has the right to pass over to access the,
Single-family dwelling on the westerly side of the property.
Just
Single-family
one.
dwelling,
Right.
okay?
But wouldn't he be passing over?
He's passing
He's
over to
coming
the
this way, he's
single-family
not-
dwelling, but he has to enter way before.
What are you saying, with the RV? Is that what you're referring to?
Whatever
Oh.
he drives in there. I mean, it doesn't matter what he
That's a
drives, he drives
65.
tank in there.
right now, he parks in his cars in the,
All his vehicles are parked on the right-of-way, which is owned by her.
Right.
He doesn't have his own driveway, so to speak.
he has access specifically stated in my deed to access a certain part of the right-of-way to park his cars as his parking, as his driveway.
Do you know where that is, Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, it's right on the plan. He's got rights in the entire right-of-way. And this was from 1965 is when it was created.
Yeah.
And I think we're going far afield in terms of the
No,
garage.
I'm just,
Yeah.
you know, the question was brought up, so I'm just getting, I'm just wanting to get clarification, that's all.
I think it's a distraction. We have rights, deeded rights in that property. That's right-of-way is ours. Her property is subject to it. We have rights to use that.
Okay, that's all, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Looks like no further questions. I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Close the public hearing. Okay. Again, I remind the board, this building inspector decision's appeal requires supermajority. So,
Okay, so the...
discussion and we need
Okay,
to vote
so
on
the
it.
motion would be on, we have it written down already?
But is there any discussion before
We
that?
read what it says first.
The motion is to revoke.
Okay.
Motion
So
is to
if
revoke
vote-
and declare the building permit
E18-205.
null and void.
So a yes vote is to revoke the permit?
Yeah, oh, I can, yeah,
Yes, okay.
yes for revoke and no, we need for supermajority. Oh, I can.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion to revoke and declare the building permit B-18-205 for the construction of a detached garage, 48 by 90 feet, at 57 Gooddale Street, West Boylston, be null and void.
So, this is to revoke the building permit. We need supermajority. Any votes? It requires 4 or more votes to revoke the building permit. Anything other than less than 4 votes, building permit stands. So,
I made the motion.
discussion, the motion and
Second.
Motion and second. Now, discussion. Charlie, you want?
The bylaw is the bylaw. I mean, I understand the detrimental aspect of it, but I just, the building inspector has pretty much made it clear that, you know, that this building permit was issued and that he could build his garage 48 by 90 feet.
Nate?
I don't have any.
Andrew?
Come back to me.
Okay. So for me, the bylaw is clear. Section 5.1, in a single residence, general residence, business district, accessory use is permitted on the same lot with usually, customarily, incident to any of the uses permitted in section 3.2 and not detrimental to the residential neighborhood. So I consider this as the garage in a normal 4-car garage. When the bylaw was written, it looks like, you know, in a single family residence, normal garages will be parking 4 cars. And will that fit to the, is it detrimental to the single family residence? I feel yes. It does, it's the garage looks like any garages in a business or commercial zone. And I don't see that is go along with the residential or a single family neighborhood. That's how I feel. That's how I interpret this section of the bylaw. And also, you know, the garage space for more than 3 automobiles except for owner's use. I think, you know, when the bylaw was written, nobody expected to be, 4-car garage means 4 automobiles, 4 regular use garages in a single residence. Not 4 RVs, 4 boats, 4 that kind of a magnitude of vehicles. So that's how I interpret in here. I do understand there are no restriction on the size of the garage in the bylaw, but the bylaw is clear. Is it detrimental to the neighborhood?
So you're voting?
Or you have no comments?
I'm really torn on this one. I think that I understand the argument that the use argument and the argument about the bylaws, but I also very firmly agree with you that it's really out of keeping with the area. So yeah, I'm gonna have to vote yes.
Okay. Is there any other? Okay. So no further discussion. So again, this is a building inspector permits administrative appeal, which requires supermajority. So the yes vote is to revoke the building permit. We do need 4 or more votes, 4 yes votes to revoke, or 4 or more no votes to keep the building permit. So with that, all in favor of revoking the building permit?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Charlie? All in opposed to revoke the building permit? Did you get the?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So the yes vote means revoke the building permit. No votes, keep the permit.
Yes,
So yes, revoke the permit?
yeah.
Okay. David?
I vote no.
Okay.
I don't think that, I don't
Yeah,
think
we
that-
already did that,
I don't
yeah.
think, I don't think that this was, the bylaw is the bylaw. There's nothing that says, I understand about the detrimental, I just don't understand how, you know, you can
Yep,
say that
this
you
is-
can't build it.
This is now voting, you know.
Okay,
We
well,
already-
but I'm just giving you my
I think, you know, the voting
interpretation.
is done, voting is done.
I
So-
vote no.
Okay.
I think it's wrong.
All I asked is, you know, all in favor of revoking the bylaw, say yes.
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 No.
Against? Okay, it's 4 yes vote and 1 no vote.
Motion carries, Mr. Chairman.
Motion carries.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for hearing us out.
Need another vote sheet. You have a vote sheet?
Yeah.
That was a hard decision.
Do we have one for earlier? The vote for earlier?
Yeah, he's still, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
He's coming.
Yeah, we're still in session.
We are still on, we are still away. Chris,
Oh, yeah, well,
can you call Chris?
we didn't adjourn, right?
No, not adjourned. I'm waiting for the chairman. Chris, we haven't adjourned the meeting.
Yeah, I don't know where that one is. I was just asking for that.
Yes, we are still on the meeting.
Good argument on the detrimental. I wish you'd been able to last one.
It's Chris then. Yeah, she already should have it.
But I need a vote sheet.
Yeah, can we sign the vote sheets
Yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah.
variances while everybody sees it? All three.
You back now?
I'm back.
Motion to adjourn.
Sometimes I have to.
Do we have anything else to discuss? Miscellaneous mail and paperwork?
Yes, and then yes, that was it, right?
I think, yeah, we covered everything else.
Fees, yeah?
Yep. Toby, for the mail and paperwork, was there anything burning that we really needed to cover tonight, or was it just?
The only thing about the, there was something on
About
the
that engineer?
agenda.
About
What?
that engineer?
Oh, the email, yes, yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't even worry about it.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it.
What's that?
It was just an
Oh,
email.
Oh, but about 2020 budget, because January 4th, Anita
We don't normally have a line item, do we, in the yearly?
I don't know if my pay,
Yeah, we're not gonna have enough money.
if my pay is something that has to go into that now, funding for,
I mean, so that's something that I can reach out to either Nancy or Anita and get an answer to? I mean, I don't think the board
Yeah.
has,
the only thing is that,
Familiarity with that.
yeah, she needs it by January 4th.
I'll reach out to her next week.
Okay.
We can clear it up next week. But I don't think there's anything new or anything changing from last year.
Well, and
Oh, there
that
is.
fee schedule thing,
What's that? What's changing?
Well, if we don't get enough petitions,
Yeah.
then we're gonna run out of money.
Again, but that's not something we can, that's a Board of Selectmen
No,
issue.
because, no, I had to go to the finance committee
Yeah.
to get money.
I understand.
Yeah, do we have to like
Charlie,
apply
you need to
for an
sign this.
amount?
These are all for
Yeah,
the,
I
for the
think
first
that's-
one, all about the
You want to close
variances.
the public hearing?
So
I
it
think
was a
that's
no
a
vote all the way across.
Broader issue than just our budget. I'll reach out to Anita and run that past her, see how she
Also,
wants to
too,
deal with it.
On the further agendas, agenda items.
Yep.
Somewhere along the line, because the thing with Rossi is January 15th, we need to do something about that before then, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, we can look at that.
We have to have an executive session.
Is there anything else?
Motion to close the public, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Well, there was just that one other thing that I think is on there about
Signatures,
fee schedule,
we talked about that.
And we
Oh,
table it.
updating the forms, you mean?
because it has to, there's a format.
Yes, so I'm gonna work on that, and that's gonna be on our next agenda. I'll bring it to the next meeting.
All right, so I'll just make a note of
And
that.
the next meeting is when?
January 17th, I think we said. Third Thursday in January. I think it's the
Thank you,
17th.
Charlie.
That sounds right, 17th.
Fair enough, Toby?
Yeah, I'm just making a note that
Yep.
that'll be on the next thing.
All right, so we have a first and a second for a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Aye, we are adjourned. Good, thank you.
All right, 10:50.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Chris Olson. How are you?
Close the- So. You want to close it?
Yeah, we'll work it out.
So what happens now?
They're gonna do, we just spoke, we said they're gonna do.
Fifteen on the thing.
Yeah, but the meeting starts at 7 o'clock.
Okay, that's not many.
We got 15 minutes. Can we, because we have a little bit of time, can we just go to these things?
If we've got time, yeah.
Because I know that we're not, the minutes is only gonna take, what, 10 seconds? All righty. Can we have, all righty.
Okay, welcome to the December 6th, 2018 meeting of the West Boylston Zoning Board of Appeals. All 5 members are present and accounted for. Let's see, first on the agenda, I know we have several public hearings tonight. The first one's scheduled for 7:15. Just before we get to that, we do have some other business that we'll take care of, and then I promise we'll get to the first public hearing right at 7:15. So thank you for that. All right, first item of order on the agenda is to review the minutes from our October 18th, 2018 meeting. Are there any comments or questions regarding the draft minutes from members of the board?
I don't see that.
It was in this stack here.
Yeah, it is,
Right there.
thank you. Thanks a lot. I'll put that back up.
Any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the,
I actually had a change that I wanted to make. We'll let Toby, nope, not at all.
Okay.
All right, so I wanted to make one change to the draft. Toby, if I could, it's on page 3. It's the last full paragraph.
Okay.
So that paragraph, it talks about the interim building inspector on 3 or 4 different occasions as being Chris Lund. And I think it's actually referring to the current building inspector. So if you could just update that, remove Chris Lund's name and put in the current building inspector, then I think it'll read correctly. Yeah.
All right, so it's just in that.
It's just in that one paragraph. I think it shows up 4 different times. Shows up 4 different times. One on line 5, another one line 6, line 7, it shows up again, and then the next to last line, the first word, it shows up.
Okay.
So if we could just update each of those. Any other amendments to the minutes for October 18th?
okay, I'll make a motion to approve the October 18th, 2018 minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, great. We do have a few more minutes before 7:15. So I'll pull up one of the items towards the end of the agenda. The first one there is, let's see, discussion of filing fees refund with requests for withdrawal. So what I wanted to do on this topic, just briefly, was talk about this, not about a specific case, but sort of more generally. When the board finds that a petition has been filed, but then is later withdrawn, what the board, should think the policy should be towards the possibility of refunding some of the filing fee.
Well,
Do folks have comments on that?
okay. What my opinion is that depending on what the petition is, if it's a special permit, it's $400.
Yeah.
Okay? I think that if they withdraw, that the notice that Toby puts into the paper, that should be covered, and 2 or 3 hours of Toby's time.
Right.
Whatever it takes.
Right.
And then and when the bill comes in from the newspaper, take that, plus her 3 hours, add those together, and then subtract it from that, and then the rest of it should be refunded. But that's just my opinion.
Is there anything else that, for time, anybody else who would touch that in the?
I'm trying to think.
I think if anyone else would have to.
Yeah.
I think, whatever the expenses we
Right.
spend on that particular issue.
Right. And I think
Up until-
those are the two big
Some of them,
expenses, right?
some of them, they don't withdraw until the 15 minutes before the meeting.
Right.
So Toby has spent it, maybe town council, we have spent so much of time and
Yeah.
money on that, not for the board, but for the town council, we have to pay for it. So whatever the expenses we spend, so that should be deducted, and then more than happy to refund the fees.
Okay, my question, Raj, would be, how would we determine as far as town council? I mean.
So if you spend money on the town council, say suppose one hearing happened,
Yeah.
so we have to go get the town council's advice.
Okay.
If there's
So
a
the
legal
town
question.
council is charging us, charging the board,
Okay.
right? So that money has to be deducted from them.
Okay.
So why the zoning board has to pay for that? This is particular, this money is for that, this consultation is for that case.
Okay.
So that's fair, right?
Yeah, so it sounds like in each case is likely
Yeah.
gonna be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so we may wanna,
Some on the town council, we may not go to the town council
Yeah.
at all.
So
that
also
time,
basically all the expenses.
all the expenses.
Okay, and then add those up and then subtract that
Yeah.
from
yeah,
whatever was given to us.
Yeah.
And then refund that. But if we do that, then we have to make sure that we put something into, into the packet, into our bylaws,
Yeah.
what we have and saying that, if you do withdraw, this is what's gonna happen. You're not gonna get all $400 back.
Right.
You're only gonna get a portion after all the expenses, and then we should be able to list some of the expenses and say, okay, this is what's gonna pay. Like,
Okay.
and I agree with what Raj
Yep.
says, that, there are certain things and, depending on how much time and, who we
Right.
have to contact, so I would
Okay.
agree with that,
Yep.
so.
all right. And so, and there are clearly, at least 3 areas there where we may be spending money that needs to be accounted for in that scenario.
Right.
Okay.
But like you said, I think that each case is gonna be.
Right. We'll have to take it sort of
Right.
case by case.
Case by
It's gonna
case
be
basis,
different.
so.
I think you gotta break down to what it's gonna
Yeah.
cost, so you
Yeah.
can pull out each cost.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Any other comments?
No?
All right.
We still got a few minutes.
Couple minutes left. Let me see if there's any paperwork here.
Can we do the next schedule? Is that-
Yeah, we could do that.
Just call it if that works.
Yeah, does that, are folks available? So I've got here the next scheduled ZBA meeting. It's our standard third Thursday of the month, third Thursday in January.
I don't have a
Are
problem.
folks still
That works.
generally able, to the extent they can predict these things, still able to meet
Yeah.
on third Thursdays of every month for 2019?
Works.
Yeah, that works for me.
That's great, that makes things simple. So we can, we can extend that out, not just January, but through the remainder of the year, but we'll stick with that timing, that works.
I think with this, I could, Toby,
Yes.
so if we are going ZBA meetings on Thursdays, third Thursdays on every month,
Right.
can we ask you are asking them to post the meetings few days before, 2 days before or so?
Yes.
So let's post them, all of them for the entire year. So the ZBA meetings,
They used to.
without the agenda.
Right.
So we can say ZBA meetings. So whenever it's close to the ZBA meeting, we can put an agenda, attach an agenda.
Well, Nancy gets the schedule, and so and then she sets up the room.
Okay, so
So
maybe you should talk to her and
Should be
see,
doing that,
You should talk to her and see, whether we can put that every third Thursday of every month, ZBA, on the calendar, town calendar.
Because they do that with the selectmen, and
Yeah,
they do
with
that
the
with the,
other
and they
meetings,
do
we
it with
do
the
that.
planning board. If you look at the calendar for the whole year, they have, when they're gonna meet, they don't have the agenda or anything, but they just have the date and the time. And
That-
because we're, like Raj said, because we're the third Thursday, and it's always in this room, then that should be, and it's been like that for the last couple of years, there should be any problem, she should be able to just push it out for the whole year and put down, okay, ZBA, January, February, whatever, 7 o'clock, and then 48 to 72 hours before the meeting, you send the agenda out, and that's it. I
So that-
agree with Raj.
That covers the, even if you have a little bit of, that 2 days before the meeting, even if you did not put the agenda. So if you have the meeting posted, that covers it, I guess, right?
Right, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we could certainly start there and post something about, when the regular meetings are, or at least have it in the municipal calendar.
Well, I don't understand why it's not done, because
Yeah.
I send a schedule
Okay.
at the end of the year.
Maybe we could reach out to Nancy on that.
And just,
ask the
double check
question.
as to how it's done,
They used to do that.
Yeah, I thought so too.
They used to have us on there, but
All right, so according to my phone here, it is 7:15, so I think we can get underway here with the public hearing.
so how are we gonna do this? We're gonna do these one at a time?
Well, so that's what I wanted to ask the petitioners. As you'll note in the agenda, we have 2 different variance requests, one with respect to Lot 5 revised, and one with respect to Lot 6.
Yes.
And because there is, let's say, at least some overlap with these two, I put them on at the same time. I wanted to give you the opportunity either to present them in any order you wish, or to present them together if that's easier, whatever you like to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. George Carizzi, I represent the applicant.
Okay. Just before you get started, though, I did want to ask the clerk if we could read into the record the notice, if you don't mind. So I believe that's you,
Nate.
Yeah.
Mr. Orsiani. Thank you.
All right, so which one are we gonna read first?
You can read them both.
Read them both? Read both at the same time? Okay.
All right, the zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing in the West Boylston Town Office, 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston, Mass., in the Board of Selectmen Meeting Room 210, on Thursday, December 6, 2018, at 7:15, to the active petition of Gary DeWolf, Kenneth DeWolf, Joseph Evangelist on 217 West Boylston Street, West Boylston, Mass., for variance for sections 2.4 and 4.3G of the zoning bylaws for one construction of 4 dwelling units extending into the single residence zone portion of the lot, and construction of 2 duplex buildings on 1 lot at Lot 5, Rev. 241 Woodland Street, West Boylston, Mass. Record title stands in the name of Gary DeWolf, Kenneth DeWolf, and Joseph Evangelista, 217 West Boylston Street, West Boylston, Mass. Copies of the petition are filed in the office of the town clerk, 140 Worcester Street. All the interested parties are invited to attend the hearing.
I apologize, we've got a second one.
The zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing at the town of West Boylston Town Office, 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston, Mass., in the Board of Selectmen Meeting Room number 210, on Thursday, December 6, 2018, at 7:15, to act on the petition of Gary DeWolf, Kenneth DeWolf, and Joseph Evangelista, 217 West Boylston Street, West Boylston, Mass., for a variance for section 4.3G of the zoning bylaws for the construction of 2 duplex, 2-family buildings on a 1 lot at Lot 6, 239 Woodland Street, West Boylston, Mass. Record title stands in the name of Gary DeWolf, Kenneth DeWolf, and Joseph Evangelista, 217 West Boylston Street, West Boylston, Mass. Copies of the petition are on file in the office of the town clerk, 140 Worcester Street. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing.
Great, thank you.
Are we gonna do Lot 5 first and then Lot 6?
I can probably, if I can just, speak, touch in on that. Again, George Carizzi, I represent the applicant. I've submitted the applications. And, Mr. Chair, I think you're right that to a very large degree, these applications overlap. So my presentation is going to be identical for the most part relative to both of those lots, relative to the request to basically build 2 habitable buildings on a lot. If I may just acclimate the board and everyone to where this property is, we're dealing with these 2 lots here, 241, 239 Woodland Street. These are the properties that are the subject of the application. The zoning line runs at an odd angle through these lots, like this way, and it starts pretty tight to the street here. On this line, it's about 30 feet off, and then it backs out to pretty wide and continues on. So the request for this lot is to push the zone district back, but not on this lot. So I would probably want to discuss basically, the first application, the first portion of my presentation would be the request to build 2 habitable buildings, because that's identical on both of the lots. And then I can talk about pushing that lot line back and why we're here. So, as I noted, just to try to acclimate the board as to where we were, my client, Joe Evangelister and Gary DeWolf, Kenny DeWolf, they own these properties. These properties split by the zone lines, and they charged their surveyor, Ronnie Thunberg, to go out to the property to identify uses for that property. And he determined, and it was planned this way, that they would build a 4-plex or 4 units on each of the lots. Because it's in a commercial zone or a business zone in the front, and because the frontage is in the business zone, they would be able to do that. Whereas Boylston has a provision that allows to extend or push the business zone use 30 feet into the residential zone, so they would be able to push it back, as I said, 30 feet at this point, they'd be able to push it back to 60, and that it goes off at an angle. So Mr. Thunberg came up with a couple of designs, and I do appreciate the board's supplying me a computer to do this, so I can show you some of the images that we had thought about.
Chris,
Yeah.
there's the 2 lot rolls over there. I didn't, okay. I didn't unroll them because there was just.
Sure.
There's enough, there should be enough copies for.
This is lot 5.
Those roles show you what we want to do and what we're hoping to do. This is what Mr. Thunberg came up with. That's not in the filings.
Toby, do you need one of these?
On these properties, Mr. Thunberg came up with, any on the properties that in the current configuration could have the long row houses running along the property. Bear in mind that the setback is only 30 feet off the street. So you could have these row houses, or you could do long row houses right along Woodland Street, pretty close to the street, keeping everything within the business zone, or business zone plus 30 feet. What they would be generating would be buildings similar to that which the town has on Shrine Ave. This big, bulky row house, 4 units, 30 feet off of Woodland Street at that intersection, which the board knows where the intersection is. It could fit, you'd have the driveways going right out there, as many as 8 driveways feeding out onto the street. If they did it the way that Mr. Thunberg said, maybe with the long row house along the side property line, you might be able to limit your driveway access. But that's what they'd be looking at. Ronnie said, Mr. Thunberg suggested to my client, this property probably screams for zoning relief to see if you can break it down into 2 buildings. And the town's done that before, and he's given my client some ideas as to where that had been. And there are some, not that one, hold on a second, sorry about that. These are all there. Oh wait, so there are some, Joe,
That's where the old motel was, on Sterling Street.
on Sterling Street. There are multiple duplexes, habitable buildings that have been authorized, separate them into duplexes on a single parcel. And so, Mr. Thunberg recommended, see if we could come with some kind of zoning relief. So what that did was we came up with this design that if we were able to split the 4-plex into duplexes, if I could, there's that. If you did that, you could push one duplex back, run the other one up front, you'd have single driveways, one driveway for each of the lots. It would come in and serve each of the properties. It would be further back. It would be no further back than the than the abutters, so you're not putting a house behind somebody else's house in their backyard. But you'd be able to push the house back to an area that's consistent with the neighboring properties. There's a neighboring house here now. So what we wanted to do was push it back, and that goes to the second application. But this is what it would be. We would be able to have 2 duplexes rather than one bulky row house. And that's what the purpose of that application was.
But is it 2 duplexes per lot?
2 duplexes per lot, as opposed
So
to
4
one
duplexes.
fourplex. I beg your pardon?
So 4 duplexes.
4 duplexes over 2 lots. But, as opposed to 2 fourplexes, through the chair, as opposed to 2 fourplexes on 2
So
lots.
it's the same amount of people that would.
Same amount of people, same amount of residences.
Yeah, so if I could just, I forgot to mention this at the top.
Sorry.
After your presentation, we may have questions. We will get to the public for any questions that you guys have. But for now, I'd like to just get to your presentation, if you could finish that.
I'm sorry.
that'd be great.
So,
No, not at all.
you saw what we were, you saw what Shrine Ave looks like, the big Shrine Ave. This is what he wants to put here. These gabled duplex units, a little higher end, a little nicer for the neighborhood, set further back, with a single driveway would come up and enter, or come up and enter this one. It would be one driveway off of Woodland Street. It would be further back, so it wouldn't be so on top of the road at that intersection, at that location. It would be further back and set back, and that's the hope that, that's what the neighborhood would have. We think it's a nicer product. That's what Mr. Thunberg recommended, and that's what I've been asked to petition for. Now, relative to the second application, which only affects the lot further up the hill. That lot line is very tight, as I said, 30 feet. And I can bump it back another 30, but it's 30 feet.
The zone line.
So the zone line. So it's kind of unique in that, in my experience, I've seen it a few times, but this zone line, usually when I see zone lines, they run parallel with the street. So, that's what we're looking at. This zone line doesn't run parallel. So this property, 100%, no relief needed to push that back. We just want to basically push the zone line back to an area consistent with the neighboring lots, neighboring houses, so that one duplex can be built here, and the other duplex can be built here, and then if you really look at it, if you can imagine what it would look like when it's all done, it would be a quad. It would be, a building on the left, 2 buildings straight ahead, a building on the right, 2 driveways coming in, servicing them. Better than basically 8 units in a row right up on the road. So that's why we're here. And I'm happy to answer any questions, you or the public. I do know that I received several phone calls. Every time I got a phone call, I took it, tried to explain it. I'm happy to answer yours or the public's concerns if I can. All right.
Great. Are there questions from the board?
Did you get a chance to review the planning board's?
I did, and I'll be happy to address that.
Okay, because from what I just heard and from reading this, there's quite a bit of difference.
Disconnect, yep.
So I just want to know where your opinion stands on their, because we asked for their opinion.
Yep.
And so now I'm asking for you to tell me how, what you just presented to me or to the board, how that differs from this.
You want me to respond to that now?
Sure.
Okay. So the planning board, we did get a copy of the planning board letter. I trust that your question deals, your specific question here deals with the planning board's discussion about whether or not it's even buildable in the first place as a fourplex?
Right.
Okay. So they raised that issue, they challenged that, and they make reference to a town council opinion. So, and they make reference to another property, that property they talked about is Crescent Street. So, we know the owners of Crescent Street, so we contacted them. say, what did the planning board say to you? What did you do? He said, we haven't been in front of the planning board. There's no application to the planning board. I said, well, what town council say? He says, we never went to the planning board. We don't know about town council opinion. So that was the first thing. So then we made an inquiry with the town. Do we have a town council opinion? No, apparently there's some kind of verbal discussion. So it made me think about this. So, and the reason I'm troubled with that is because it's difficult to give you an opinion on what somebody else is saying, another lawyer is saying about another site. Because there's so many ways that opinion might not be 100% applicable here. But one of the things that bothered me about that, despite the fact that the owner of the Crescent Street property said, I'm not in front of the planning board, don't know what you're talking about. Despite that issue, the opinion is just so contrary to case law. So this issue's been cited, and it's been decided for 30 years. There's a couple cases that came out of the appeals court that talked about it. Land in the more restrictive zone can be used for frontage and area, dimensional requirements, but not for use. So the courts in those cases have said, so let's go back to this land. The land on these lots behind this zone, the area in that can be used for dimensional requirements, but not for use. So I can't place the house here.
And you can cite case law on that?
Yeah, I'll give you the case. It's interesting, is that the case I'm gonna give you deals with multifamily versus single family. So it's not as though it's just.
I was at one of the planning board meetings for 19 Crescent Street. They happened in front of the planning board. It was years ago. They filed a permit. No, they never filed a permit. They were at a round table.
So the case is, if you want to take the note on that, it's Moore versus the town of Swampscott, 26 Mass Ave, 1008, right? And that court relies on Tofias, Tofias, versus Butler. And that's 26 Mass Ave Court, 89, both 1988 cases.
So my understanding of that issue is that to the extent, so let's assume, I mean, I don't have that case law in front of me, I'm assuming what you're telling me is absolutely the gospel truth. I have no reason to doubt that. The way I understand that issue is that goes to the issue of density. So how many units are you allowed to have on in the case of 5 revised, you have 46,000 square feet.
Four units.
So you're entitled to 4 units.
Yes, 10,000 per unit.
Yep, hence, that's why you have not requested a variance for increased density because you don't need it.
That's correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yep.
Does the similar, how does the math on lot 6 play out? What's the square footage for lot 6? I don't see it on the plan here.
I don't have that in front of me. It's 41,000 and change. 41,000.
41,000, you're saying approximately?
It's over 40,000.
I can't see you pointing out over there. Maybe if you can come, I have the map here. Can you just come over and show me exactly where these would sit on here? So I can.
So this is the street.
Yeah.
All right. And what we're looking to do is put one up front in this area here.
Which is going to be a duplex?
A duplex. So the driveways would come in the front.
Okay. So here, somewhere.
Yep. And then here. And then one here and one here. And so see these rectangles? These are the structures. And so we made the back ones.
Oh, so you want one here and
one here, one here, one here, and one here.
Oh, okay, this is going on to the next.
Right. And this one doesn't need to push the lot line back because this lot line because the zoning line already goes back. When you have the zone line here and then 30 feet, I have plenty of room. I could put it back here. I don't want to do, we're not doing that. We want to keep it at the same line as the buildings here. And then the other one's in front.
Okay.
As opposed to putting the entire thing along here or the entire thing along here.
Okay, so what is this property zoned at? Not lot 5?
Lot 5. So this thick black line right
Right.
here is the zone line.
Okay.
Business, single residence.
Okay.
However, the zoning bylaw allows you to carry that back 30 feet.
Okay, this is the business?
That's business.
Okay, so how much land is between here and that line right there?
It's like roughly half.
It's probably a little less than half.
Yeah.
It's probably be 20,000 square feet.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because if you look at their, and I'm only gonna talk about Lot 5 right now, because
Fair enough.
because to me, it's confusing when you're trying to, because there's two separate things. 'Cause
Okay.
one lot, you're asking for 2 variances, and another lot, you're asking for 1 variance.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Lot 5 first, okay? And in the the third paragraph, it says, the assertion, this is the planning board's decision, or their recommendation. The assertion in the petition that the lot is afforded a 4-unit multifamily use is false. The zoning allows multifamily use in the business district, but not in the single residence district. The area within the 2 districts is not clearly denoted, but it appears there is only 7,000 square feet of lot within the business district. Since the zoning requires 10,000 square feet per multifamily unit, section 4.3.8, it appears that they are allowed only 1 unit on this lot. So if you can explain to me, because I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, they're telling me that
So what they're
you
saying.
can do it in the business, but you can't do it in the single, and if
So
that
what they're
line-
saying to you, the way they're interpreting, they haven't said it right here, but if you follow through their logic, they're saying to you is that all of the square footage to meet the density requirements for a fourplex must come in the business zone. You can't tack on your area that's outside that zone for density. That's what they're saying. They're saying there is to say that, okay, you only have 7,000, you can't do a multifamily because you don't have over 10,000 per unit. You need to have, and I said, no, we can build 40 because we can build a fourplex because we have 46,000 square feet. And they say, no, you can't because you don't have 40,000 square feet in the zone. They don't say in the zone, but we clearly have 40,000 square feet. So they have to be saying in our zone. And they're saying that's the opinion of council, which I didn't see.
Yeah.
And it's inconsistent with Moore, it's inconsistent with Tobias. I don't know what it is. And I just had this down in Uxbridge, Millville, on a similar issue, although that was solar. And I'm using frontage for a solar use.
Yeah, so I think that's fine. I would actually like it, I would ask the board if we would kind of leave that issue alone, because he's in fact not asking for a variance with respect to density.
And that's a great point, Mr. Chair, because one of the things that I had a problem, well, not a problem, but a concern about the planning board is that this issue is initially decided by the building inspector.
Right.
And if we disagree with him or he disagrees with us,
Right.
then we come to you.
Yes.
It never hits the planning board. So I don't even know why planning board's getting a town council opinion on an issue that's either a building inspector issue or a ZBA issue.
Yeah,
You know,
fair enough. So let's move to the two issues where you are seeking a variance.
Can I ask
Yes.
one question?
Yes.
So this lot was at some point, subdivided, right?
yes, yes,
Is this the current owner
yes, it is.
asked for the subdivision?
Yes,
So this is the subdivision you requested, right?
yes.
This is the way you did
Yep.
the
I
subdivision?
recognize we're going self-imposed hardship, got this. We created the lots, there's no doubt. We created them with 40,000 square feet, all right? It's our surveyor who said you get a better product for the owners, for the town, for the abutters. We could throw these row houses in, but you get a better product. You know, spend a couple grand on a lawyer and see if you can get a better product.
Yep,
I got a question too.
go ahead.
Can't we have the house lots or houses placed on the print? I mean, if you've done so much work, you've decided where they're gonna go. I don't wanna vote on this verbally. I wanna see them on paper.
May I approach? May I approach?
Sure.
They're there. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I want it drawn
They're
on.
here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's going to be
These-
the rectangles?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, so.
No, no,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
The other thing too is, and I think that this is an important factor, I think that we should tell the public, or let them know what constitutes a variance. When the board votes on a variance, there are certain things that are required.
Yes.
And they have to be met. All three issues have to be met, and I think that the chair
No,
should.
Absolutely. It's a good lead into what my next question was going to be, Mr. Carizzi. So which was, as we've talked about, you're seeking a variance, so let's talk about the two variances that you're asking, one on each lot for putting two buildings that will be dwellings onto each lot. The current zoning, without respect to what zoning district you're in, the current zoning only allows for one structure to be used as a dwelling on any one lot. You're asking for two buildings to be used as dwellings on each of these lots. So my question would be to you, how does this request comport or meet the standard to which we're supposed to apply under the variance standard? Because I know one of the examples that you talked about in your presentation was Sterling Street. And it's good to see the difference in the buildings, I understand that, but I remember that the Sterling Street situation, that was not a variance situation, that was a special permit situation, because there was, what was previously there, the motel, was non-conforming to zoning. So that was a different issue than what we're faced with here. We're not dealing with a currently non-conforming lot, so this is a different scenario. So I just want to hear your analysis.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. It is, we all know that variances are grudgingly granted, and that the standard for a variance is very difficult. And that there's a statutory criteria of hardship associated with slope, topography, and shape. Shape, we're pretty consistent. I mean, there's really not much, because not only do we have to have a hardship, but it has to be a hardship unique to the lot, and not associated with any other lots.
Yes.
So it's difficult. So my petition is admittedly, I talk about the benefits and why it's not an adverse effect on the town, without really talking a whole lot about hardship. I will say that the slope of the lot in this front area is the steepest slope, is the steepest part of it. So it would be, it does pose a little bit more difficulty building on this front portion of the lot where the slope is the steepest going down to the street. So we're saying that constitutes a hardship. We can push it back and we can build on the flatter portions of the lot a little further up, and that would be a lot easier. And that would be it would be financially better for us, and it would be easier. And so therefore, I think the only argument I've really made relative to the statutory criteria is relative to slope. I don't believe we have any unique soils. I don't believe we have a unique shape. It's a pretty standard shape, so it's not really. I did suggest that there was something unique that did face this property, and that is the fact that the zone line does run at a very odd angle to the property.
Yep.
And that's not something that is often encountered. That is something that is probably pretty unique to this property. The fact that we have a zone line that runs non-parallel. If this were like most other properties, would have a zone line further back, and I'd get my 30 feet and I could squeeze it in. But that's not parallel, and so that's one thing, is that's causing the hardship that brings us in here. But the only real statutory hardship that we're arguing is the slope, and we recognize that if hardship is what's going to sink or swim, make this sink or swim, it is going to be a difficult sell. And we're really presenting that once you get past the slope, or the topography and the slope, it's a better product. It's simply a better product.
Other comments, questions from the board? So that's the two buildings on each lot issue. The second issue, which is specific to Lot 5 then, is, as you're saying, pushing it back beyond the 30 feet past the zoning district line.
Right. So what we're seeking on lot 5 is to extend the maximum depth of the use. And it's not a use variance, it's a dimensional because we're pushing the line. So it would be to extend from 30 feet to a line parallel with the street. And I think I say 0 on the east side of the property to 120 feet on the west side of the property. So I'm moving it from here to here, and I'm leaving it here. Squaring it off and having a triangle of business use. So I'm extending the business use into that zone, which is dimensional because the bylaw allows for a 30-foot extension already.
Yep. And so by doing that, I mean, just to be fair, so you're asking to put one of the duplexes in completely within the single residence district.
Almost completely. Well, it would be all 100, but you're right.
But some parts
100%
within the 30
because it would be within the 30 feet, but it would be in the, yes.
It's completely within the single residence district. So, I mean, in that sense, I mean, I wasn't around when the zoning map was compiled. I don't know what was in the mind of, the folks who put that together or town meeting when that was approved, to be honest. But I know there are a number of places, Route 12, this is another one, where there are a number of lots that are sort of split within business, either on Route 12 or on Woodland Street or Prospect Street, and then residential zoning, maybe 100 feet or something into the lot, so.
See, I can see that parallel with the street.
Right.
But when it runs off at an angle, so oftentimes I'll see it, and it's something that I've run across it a few, I'm not gonna lie, I've run across it a few times, but.
Sure.
They're usually, zone lines are usually parallel to the street.
Yep.
In fact, there's a lot of towns define them, not only do they show them on the map, but then they'll define them,
Yeah.
in the bylaw as being parallel.
Fair enough, fair enough. Other questions from the board at this time? No.
Yeah.
Question?
I'm still confused with lot 5 as far as the line and where the building is sitting. To me, you're putting that whole building in the single residence. Is that correct?
The back building, sir?
No, the front building.
The front building is not all in the single residence. There's a portion of it.
This one here.
Business.
Yeah, that's split.
Okay, and that's what I'm talking about. This is the one that you want to push back 30 feet?
So this is what we want to build. So we're going to put on the east side of the property, there's the one that runs parallel with the street. And on the west side of the property, it runs perpendicular from the street.
All right, can I just ask Mr. Cook to come up here
Yep,
and show
sure.
me? I can't see that well over there, I'm blind. Okay, so this building here, okay, this is the first one, okay?
Yes.
Part of it's gonna be in business and part of it's gonna be in single.
Yes.
Okay, how much of it is in business, how much is in single residence?
Right now, it appears to be just about half in the business and half in single residence.
Okay.
But by the way, in the single residence is permitted under the current bylaw. Bylaw allows this line to go back 30 feet already.
Okay, so by moving that back 30 feet, then this whole building would be in the business?
Except for that corner, and if I moved it out a little bit, it would all be in authorized use. No variance needed for that building.
Well, wouldn't it be, I don't know, Mr. Evangelista, but wouldn't it just be easier just to slide that building over
That's
so
not
that?
the problem, it's this one.
Okay,
So this one has to be pushed back.
okay.
So, and in order to do that, we need to push this line back to be parallel with the street. Because this building is all in the, this corner is authorized, but this whole building, for the most part, only gets built if we push that zone line back here. And and that, by the way, is even, it's actually still in front of where it is on this lot. This lot goes back even deeper, because the way it goes out. So this lot doesn't need to be pushed back. We're already well within our area that's allowed. We want to just push this one back so that it's parallel, it's basically, you don't have crooked teeth, this one's up front, that one's off kitty corner, this is, or a big row house right here that is off this road, 30 feet off the road. People aren't even gonna be able to see down.
Okay, so now, talking about now, when you go to lot 6, okay, this is gonna be pushed back 30 feet?
Nope, that's right there. And that's within, that is completely within an authorized place.
Okay, so then why do you need a variance for this? If it's within
Just for two buildings.
Two buildings. You're only
To
allowed
make it,
one.
it's only to split the use, split the buildings, two habitable buildings.
I'm still having a problem with lot 5, but,
All right.
Are
there any other questions? Before we go to the public, I did want to put on the record the feedback that we received from the various town boards. We've already spoken some about the planning board letter. We did also receive some feedback from, the Conservation Commission, I believe. Let me see if I can find that here. Mr. Carizzi, did you get the feedback from the Conservation Commission?
We heard that
You
Concom,
received that, all right,
yeah,
perfect.
they say this. We measured out, I scaled it out, we're over 200 feet from the wetlands, but
Yep.
obviously if there's an environmental issue or
Yep.
wetland issue, we have to deal with it.
And did you receive feedback as well from Board of Health?
I didn't know that.
I'm looking for it here. Toby, do you remember if we received anything regarding these variances?
I printed out.
Oh, wait a
I
minute,
saw that Concom,
I think this is it here,
wetland
right?
protection or something.
I may not have sent it because she had passed it along.
Well, this is, there's sewer.
There is sewer,
Yeah,
yes.
so-
Oh, and they said,
That's-
is Board of Health the one we did get something from, maybe it was DPW or sewer,
Yeah.
saying that we're gonna have to do sewer connections.
Yeah,
We
that's
recognize
right, all right,
that.
so
I
that's
will
all
say
on the record.
relative to Concom, and I recognize if there's Concom issue, we gotta deal with Concom.
Yep.
My client has letters from MDC, because we went to MDC back in 2002 for a advisory ruling. And they advised that all of this property was non-MDC, or at that, non-MDC. So I got those letters, if I can give the board, just if you want them for your files, give it to Toby if you want.
And just so the public knows, MDC was the Metropolitan District Commission, which is now DCR, okay? They changed their name, so just so that people say, well, who's MDC?
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
All right, so if there are no other questions at this time from the board, we will then open it up to the public for...
No, motion to close there?
No, not yet, not yet. For question or commentary, one at a time. When you do, if you have something to say, if you can please state your name and your address loudly, so that we can record that for the record. And then you'll have a short amount of time to make your comments or ask your question. And are there any, yes, sir. Name and address, please.
If you don't mind, I'd like to say ahead of time, I missed about 90% of this because I got 2 hearing aids and a head cold.
Oh.
And my son, who was also an attorney, was supposed to be here last night, but he's tied up with one of his clients up in Lawrence. Anyway, I do have a couple items, if you don't mind.
Could you give your name and address for the record?
Name, address, is that what?
Yes.
Gus Pinchton, 554 Prospect Street, Realty Trust. 50 years living in the house there.
Thank you.
12 years on the Conservation Commission in West Boylston and about 15 Pinecroft Water District, so I paid some dues.
Thanks for your support.
Very good.
I have some, let me start out by saying, I knew when Mr. Larson passed away and then the property was sold. I'm not naive, somebody would buy that and I could see 2 or 3 nice houses with lots and trees and, well, there ain't no more trees or anything. Which leads me to saying, I'm very concerned about what's going on already in the last couple of years, okay? If it's any indication of this overkill. The place is cleared. Trees, brush, growth. You people should go up by Pinecroft when there's a rainstorm, which we had some good ones, and watch the water gushing by my driveway and down Prospect Street, and enough to go over the crest in the road to the dairy across the street. If you go up there right now, you'll see all kinds of little stones and pebbles and that have been washed down there. I can't wait to even think what's gonna happen in the springtime with the runoff, with that little narrow street that comes down from Holden, and there's a stop sign just a little ways before my driveway that about 25 or 30% of the people coming down take a quick look to the left to see if anybody's coming Prospect and just go right through the damn thing. And I've already seen a couple of people from that little quick storm that we had when it was clearing out end up in the ditch right next to my driveway, so God only knows what's going to happen. That's one consideration. I don't know if you people, something else came to my mind while I was thinking about all of this last night laying in bed. The last 2 or 3 years, I've had at least a half a dozen visits from the Asian longhorn beetle people in my yard, and they say this was a very important area that they were involved in. How were we able to do all that clearing, the logging trucks, the brush and everything, and haul it all away? Did somebody give these people some special permit or something to do that?
I couldn't tell you that.
Well, somebody should know.
It's,
All right. The other thing is logging trucks, excavators, backhoes, which is part of the business. Well, if anybody should decide to want to go up there and look at what I said previously about the runoff, take a ride up my driveway and look at a 20-foot section of my stone wall that has collapsed. Because of all the vibration and that. Now, most of the time, normally over the years, my wife and I are gone in the good weather because we have a place at the Cape. The last 5 years or so, I've been a caretaker. Now I'm a full-time caretaker. So when I get a little bit of time, I can sit out in the patio and read a book, do a crossword. Forget it. Planking, banking, digging, and look, it's part of it, okay?
you're saying noise from development that's going on in that area?
This is like we're putting a little village.
Okay.
This was one of the last areas we had up in that Pinecroft area, and it was a nice little area. It's good.
Any construction, you know, you
I'm
will
sorry.
hear, any construction, you will hear noise, right? Any construction, you will hear noise. Any kind of construction, you will hear noise. So the thing is, you know, what we need to know is, you know, what they are asking for it, that's all we need to talk. Not the noise of the construction, right?
Was it approved, though? Was it approved, all the clearing?
Clearing is not up to the zoning board of appeals. They have to follow the certain rules and regulations, so
Well,
they,
Again, to go back where when I started, I wouldn't even be here, because I'm not that naive. I knew that there would be some houses over there, but,
That,
hello?
yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. We're gonna have a village. And God knows by the time they finish, I'll probably be pushing up daisies in St. John's, but, you know, I'm almost 80 years old.
Good for you.
My kids are, deal with it, but I'm here not because of that, because of the principle of the thing. So, you know,
Anything else?
the first thing I'm doing in the next couple of weeks is I'm going down and I'm getting an abatement on my taxes.
Thank you, sir.
That's my story, and there's lots of other things, but you ought to pass this along to whether it's the DPW or what, I don't know,
Okay.
about the drainage over there, because they should know about this.
Okay.
And somebody, these guys, I don't know if these guys from the Wolf or Evangelista are here, but come up my driveway and take a look at my collapsed wall. I'm a retired, Social Security guy, taking care of my wife. God knows what it would cost to repair that damn thing.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Other comments from the public? Yes. Name and address, please.
Tammy Hubbard, 15 Pinecroft Ave. I'm on the back side of the property where the brook runs. And every rainstorm, like you said, the brook overflows and it actually goes into my basement. So we just spent $6,000 on a retaining wall and regrading to try to prevent that from happening. So I think if they push it back, if they're digging up and getting rid of all the trees, it's going to cause more flooding. And I've gone to the conservation commissions and they know all about it. It's been happening for a long time.
Okay.
So that's my concern, one of them. And looks,
So
why not
you-
just put one house on each lot?
Yep.
Just a house like they did.
So your property where you're talking about these drainage issues, are you over the town line
Actually,
back
no.
there, or are you on the?
Hubbard.
Oh, okay.
That's
Right
good,
here.
yeah, right?
So there's
Okay,
a-
thank you.
There's a brook that comes here,
Yep.
and when it rains, it overflows, and literally, water gushes in to my basement. And then down the street. But first into my basement, so, like I
Okay.
said, it's like $6,000 trying to remedy the situation.
You're Hubbard, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're on this
Okay.
side?
Right here.
East.
So if they keep the. if they
Yeah,
keep
I
it
see
up,
Hubbard,
it'd be better.
it looks like Hubbard's over.
Right
Yeah,
here.
it's right here.
Okay. Right
The
there?
the brook that's being referred is
Okay, it looked like-
much further back. We're not going anywhere near it.
Yeah, but it's back enough, and this is all uphill, and it goes downhill towards my property.
Yeah, way down.
So if they're pushing back, why not keep it up here?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a question? Yes.
This property, before it was cleared, did it have any of that Asian beetle on it? I mean, was any of the property?
Yeah, sure. He's asking about Asian beetles on your.
We hired a person who had an Asian beetle certificate and was certified by the state to remove the trees. Golden Land Clearing out of Spencer. So all I can tell you is that I hired a reputable land clearer, so if there's any question whether the person who cleared the land wasn't qualified, then I highly recommend you contact, because he showed me a certificate, so other than knowing that, I believe that he was certified to clear the land. And basically, all the stuff needs to be chipped up and whatever he did.
Because
but
I
he's
know
a-
there's,
Yeah,
from what I understand,
he's
there's
very
specific-
reputable. It's Roger Golden, he's out of Spencer. He clears thousands and thousands of acres for development, and he assured me that he had his beetle certification. And if I could just have 5 minutes of your time, just real quick. I've been in this town a long time, and I know that,
Who is, first of all, we're
I'm sorry.
supposed to be speaking, the
I'm
public.
He's public too, but.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
they
public.
wanna speak. I told you, Joe, wait for the
Yeah.
public, wait for the.
all right, I'll wait.
No, you can speak.
Who-
Just, who are you in?
No, no, no,
Well, who
somebody
are
else
you?
wants to
I
talk.
don't even know.
I'm the applicant, Joey, one of the applicants, Joe Evangelista. But I'll wait until everybody's done.
Okay, other public comments at this time? Yes, please stand, state your name and address, please.
Pat Arnold, 6 Pinecroft Avenue.
Okay?
In regards to the limit of the business zone versus the single residence,
Yeah.
it's true that most of the time, those lines are drawn parallel to a road because that's where the businesses are. If you look at it, I do believe that this is parallel to Prospect Street, and the businesses are along Prospect Street.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Do you abut it, sir? Excuse me, sir?
Six Prospect.
Do you abut this property?
No, I'm within 300 feet.
Okay, all right.
I'm on the other side of this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Other comments?
Mr.
Patricia Keith, 565 Prospect Street, and 559. It's approved for 2 lots, right? It's 2 lots.
There are 2 lots.
For 1 house each.
Well,
Right?
one house each but if we were talking single residence, so in the business district, you are allowed multifamily use, up to 4 units per lot, I
But the
believe.
lots aren't completely business.
But they're not completely business, right?
In fact, the square footage of the lots that are business aren't enough to justify 4 units.
Well, again, that goes to the density issue that we talked about before. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just because he's not asking for a variance from the density requirement. I'd like to focus on the 2 variance
Yeah, I'll
requests
identify myself.
that
Thank you.
are of the record.
Yep.
Did you finish your comments? I'm sorry? I wanted to make sure
I might
that-
have another one.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay. Yes.
Andrew Phelan, 101 Central Street, West Boylston, associate member of the zoning board.
Zoning board.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if you were a building inspector.
No.
I'd ask you just to identify, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand that there's some issue about the density here. I've got Moore versus the town of Swampscott in front of me. That was a case involving 8 feet of frontage that was solved by combining the 2 lots to create a hybrid lot to give the amount of frontage required to create the density that they wanted. This is a completely different situation. I don't see how that applies. That's a huge legal stretch.
No, just so you know, 8 feet of frontage is not 8 feet of frontage. If I can, the lot had frontage on 2 roads. It was on one road and another road. In the residence zone, it didn't have the area, but it had the frontage. In the business zone, it didn't have the frontage, it had the area, but it didn't have the frontage. So the court said, you combine them. You can use the frontage in this zone with all of your area, and the land court said, just so you know, if you're reading the case, and I don't want to say I'm misrepresenting, I mean, especially, this is where I get a little, defensive, is because I'm saying it wrong. What the court said in that land court case said there is that, okay, you got these things, we're gonna let you combine them. We're gonna let you use the frontage here, we're gonna let you use the area, but you have to use this for the most restrictive use, residents only. The appeals court said, no, you combine them, and you can use it for the less restrictive use, multifamily. But your structure has to be in the multifamily zone.
Okay.
Your use, your yard, which is a passive use, that yard can be in the residence zone, or the more restrictive one, but you can combine it for area.
Yep.
And that's what the court said there, and that's what Tobias said, because the Tobias case says that when we look at this, a person should be able to use all their land as a whole for the purposes of zoning, but or be able to combine all their land as a whole for their dimensional requirements, but their uses are depending upon the use. So that's why, and I'm happy to deal with counsel on that, and I also believe that this issue is really a building inspector issue.
Yeah.
So far.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments at this time from anybody?
Can I just show you a couple pictures of like the flooding that happens? Can I show you guys?
Sure.
Give you a better idea.
Did it happen before we started?
Yeah, because it's just gonna make it worse.
That's been going
So,
on
this
since
is my house.
we started there.
And then it,
Hold on.
Hey, hold on,
let
he's
Mr.
gonna be able to
Christie
see as
come
well.
up here too and see, and look
So
too.
he can see as well, please.
okay, this is how the flooding, this is brook, this is the brook that runs
In the back.
in the back. Can you see the brook? Okay. So
Yeah,
that's there, that's the beginning of the flooding. And then it comes up to my basement. And then, if you want to listen to this. Oh, here we go. That's water coming in my
Is that the
house.
basement?
Yes, from that that brook.
That's coming from the outside into your
Yes.
basement?
Pouring in. And I've been to the Conservation Commission, they were like, couldn't do anything, there's a problem, but I think anything that's, where are we?
So that's the wetland you're back here.
Yes,
Oh, you're
anything
on
that's
the-
pushed back further is, and this is uphill, so everything's gonna go down. If they push it back, everything's gonna go down, down, down. And cause more of a problem.
This drainage is gonna flow down. it flows down, this is above the street. The drainage from these buildings are gonna be going down.
Well, how-
We
how
don't
will it not
contribute
go
back
down?
there. It doesn't go uphill,
You're cutting down these trees and anything that's
but the
keeping-
water doesn't flow uphill.
This is downhill. I actually have pictures
All right.
that I just took today.
All right, well, thank you for that, I appreciate
But
that.
there's also pictures, like if you walk the land, it goes down.
Yep,
From here to here, it's down.
thank you very much. So I get, it sounds like there's no more further comments from the public?
He does want to,
Yes, oh, there is one. Hang on one second, sir. Yes, please, name and address, please.
Elizabeth Arnaud, 6 Pinecroft Avenue.
Okay.
While I understand that plans change, I was wondering how many bedrooms were going to be in each housing unit.
Based on, if we're successful, 3.
3 bedrooms in each housing unit.
Yes.
And I know that the planning board probably doesn't have this information, but this is going to encourage 2, 4, 6, 8 to 16 kids going into the schools.
We're only graduating 58 kids right now. I think that we need them.
Anything else?
The ledge that's on this property, how is that going to impact the building? Are they going to have to blast?
I'm not aware of any existence of ledge on the property.
No.
If there were ledge, I would have been screaming for soil conditions.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Mr. Evangelista, did you have some comments you wanted to make?
Evangelista, I'm the petitioner, and
Would you just state your address for the record as well?
145 Prescott Street.
Thank you.
Me and my partners bought this property with anticipation of developing it to its, what we felt would be the most reasonable potential for the town of West Boylston. We have lots of options here. We have a commercial business frontage here that we could do 8, 10, 12,000 square foot commercial building here, and with literally 8 residential units sitting on top of it, because I know the town is really interested in doing some mixed use stuff, and we contemplated that, and we've looked at the options to do that, but we felt we just built a brand new house next door. We sold it close to, for a good amount of money, and we told the gentleman that we sold the house to that we're going to keep it residential there, and that's our intention, at this point, to do no commercial development there if we're successful today. And I thought that we built that on Shrine Ave. I mean, I like the building. It's going to sell. We're going to do well. But if we could have 4 units, a little more upscale to make the area better for everybody, we felt it was worth us coming here to ask you that. And again, if we're not successful here today, we still have lots of options. I mean, we may decide to, do a restaurant there, do a dance studio, do a bar room. I mean, we have lots of options here that we could pursue. But we really want to build these buildings right here and make it look really nice. And what I felt was to do the best thing for that area that I felt comfortable with doing. That's all, And if you look at most of the developments in town, like Old Stone Village, duplex lots, After Terrace, multiple buildings. Majority of the condominiums that were built in town, all of them have multiple dwellings. And I don't know how many of you have been in West Boylston, how long you've done it, but back some odd years ago, we created a provision to allow for in-law apartments in town. And part of this bylaw was written to block cottage housing on these big houses, because you're allowed to build 33% of your house can be an in-law. So what they were afraid of was that I was going to build a 4,000 square foot house, and I was going to have a 1,000 square foot cottage for my, per se, in-laws or kids. So they wrote this habitable dwelling, this is my opinion anyways, and I believe this was happening at the time, this multiple dwelling, habitable dwelling only applies to residential zone, and it was inserted specifically to block cottage housing, big 4,000 square foot houses with an additional 1,000 square foot, residence on the lot. And you can go in the commercial zone that allows multiple commercial buildings. You look at the stonemason there, he's got his house in the front and he's got the commercial building in the back. So most zones allow for multiple dwellings. It's very specific that this bylaw was written not to block condominium development to make it look nice and attractive to the public instead of row housing, was to block actually the cottages from appearing on residential single-family lots. That's all I have to say. If that helps you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Nothing for me, sir.
Okay. One more comment? Yes, sir.
One thing I would like to say, in the record, the 554 Prospect Street, I want to officially note that I'm opposed to the proposition, the way it's being proposed.
It's in the record now.
So I want it in the record that I'm opposed.
It's in the record now. Thank you. Yes, you. Please.
Yeah.
Name and address?
Liz Reddick, 30 Osgood. So we're around the corner, but in back. So we're opposed, and I don't know why he's trying to scare us. He's gonna put a dance studio or whatever here. What is wrong with another single house just like that's there? We wouldn't be opposed to anything if it was just that. But this is ridiculous. This is, when we first moved there, we've been there 21 years, we had such beautiful wildlife and trees and deer in our backyard. And now we have noise and traffic and no trees, and it's ridiculous that they're doing this.
If I may respond.
Thank you for that. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through the chair, I just question, people when they're opposing, and I appreciate the concerns that's going on next to them. One of the reasons we're here is, would they prefer this, which is coming, or would they prefer?
Yeah, exactly.
This? That's the issue. Do you want the big row houses, or do you want these duplexes? And because it's not a single family is not gonna happen there. It's gonna either be a
Put
fourplex.
one duplex on each lot.
It's gonna be two duplexes or a fourplex, because you're gonna maximize the use of your property.
Yeah, okay.
That's what happens, people spend a lot of money on it.
Yeah, well, I paid a lot of money on this property.
They maximize the property for the use. Now, whether or not it's usable, we'll let the building inspector decide.
Okay, just a couple more comments, and then I think we're all set. Mr. Phelan? Thank you.
I just got a quick question from Mr. Evangelista. 145 Prescott Street, it's about 11 and a half acres?
Sure.
You're gonna put 44 units there?
What zoning doesn't allow it, sir?
Just asking.
I'm telling you.
Would you want 44 units there?
I tried and they shut me down.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
I just urge you to listen to the planning board and listen to our other boards, elected officials who have opinions on this. That's all.
Fair enough. Any other questions or comments from the board at this
First, I
time?
move to close the public hearing.
She
Okay.
has another question.
Could you just let us know what the feedback of the Conservation Commission was? Because we don't have access to that.
The Conservation Commission was, it was to the effect that if the project were to go forward, that they had to go see the Conservation Commission to take a look at possible issues. That, in a nutshell, that's what it said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So can the
no.
project go forward without their approval?
I'm sorry?
Can the project go forward without the Concom approval?
I mean, there's a determination process where if you're gonna build something, you really do have an obligation to go to the Conservation Commission to see if there's, say, wetlands that are a certain distance from your proposed building. So there is a process in place for that. So generally speaking, that's at least the way the process is supposed to work, whether it's through the Conservation Commission directly or maybe by the direction of the building inspector. But generally, yeah, that should take place. Any other comments from the board on this before we consider closing the hearing as I have?
Go ahead.
Anything else?
I have a question for Mr. Carizzi.
Yes.
What's a quick claim paper for $100? What's that all about?
So, a quick claim deed is an instrument of transfer of title, all right? So, we use we use, it's a deed. So the first thing is it's a deed. It's an instrument of conveyance. The grantor, the person who signs the document, is the grantor conveying their interest to a grantee. The consideration is either for money, or if it's to a related party or a gift, the consideration is less than $100. If the consideration is to a related entity, you have to pay a tax on the transfer. So you don't want to pay a transfer tax if it's to a related entity. So you'll make those conveyances for less than $100. Conveyances less than $100 do not require a transfer tax. So it's just, that's the business meant of it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
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 Okay, the public hearing is closed and the board will now deliberate. Thoughts from folks generally?
I feel like, there is no hardship here. So they really wanted to, they came in and they wanted the lot to be designed this way. They wanted to split the lot, subdivide the lot this way. So I don't see grounds for variance here.
Okay.
There is no hardship, there is no topography or all those things mentioned in the variance. I do not see.
Anyone else?
No, I have to agree with Raj. I don't see, the criteria for variance, I don't see how it is. And I still have problems with the way these buildings are and how they interrupt and, and like one of the ladies talked about, reading the planning board, and I just don't see that, the 10,000 square feet and there's only 7,000. I don't see it.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
Can I just make one? I'm just curious. Was there ever any talk about maybe making this one lot and trying to do the 4 buildings with the duplexes and do 4 buildings? I mean, was that ever taught?
Face the same challenge, you'd have 8 in a row instead of 4 duplexes. I mean, you'd be in the same situation.
Okay.
So we divided it so that we could have 2 4-plexes rather than 1 8-plex.
Okay. All right, well, so I'll close by saying, first off, thank you. I think you gave a very good presentation, very clear presentation for the board. So thank you for that. Job well done, I think. And also, I certainly did appreciate the comments that you made earlier on, and I think that at least the motivation for what seemed like some of the motivation for this project was at least trying to do what you can to have this fit into the existing neighborhood as best it can. I hope that continues to play a role in whatever happens to these properties moving forward. But as far as looking at the 3 specific variance requests that we're talking about, and we obviously talked about this, the question was asked, we're looking for, specific circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land to justify this variance, because it is a variance and not a special permit that we're talking about. And unfortunately, I just didn't see sufficient evidence for that here tonight. That's just...
And we do need a supermajority.
Yes, we do. So with that being said, if there are no other comments, is there a motion?
Before we make a motion, I just want to ask a question, okay? So Lot 5 had 2 variances, and Lot 6 had 1
Yes.
variance. So are we going to vote each one separately?
Three votes.
There's going to be 3 votes.
Each one separately.
So the first one would be, for Lot 5, would be
We'll do Lot 5 revised first.
Do you need vote sheets?
Yes.
We can handle that. After the fact, basically.
Let's make sure we get the right nomenclature. Okay, so,